Side. And who else do we got here? Let's see. The gorgeous Cosmic Floor has returned. Matthew Kennedy, thanks for coming on in. George Almaraz, nice to see you. And Uncle Dale and his Power Stash are here. Remember, if you see Uncle Dale in Austin, Texas, rub his Power Stash for good luck right through tax time. Yeah, tax time. Mennonite Abe, what's happening, buddy? Thank you for joining us. Okay, we're all caught up. Hi, Cloudy with a Chance of UFOs. Good to have you back. The Super Chat is open. It is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. We got a lot of new people here in the chat room tonight. We do take commercial breaks at the bottom and top for our radio side that we broadcast on. So just pay attention. We'll get you through it. Hi, gorgeous Kathy Evans. And I need a favor right now, everyone. Horns up. Let's rock. In like 25 seconds. Damn it, I did it again. That's twice this week. All right, we'll do that in a second again. Just forget about that. But yes, we do take commercial breaks here because we are a live radio show as well on terrestrial radio. So just you get to hear the behind-the-scenes chatter from Swamp Dweller and myself. So now let's do me a favor, if you don't mind. Let's get our horns up again. Mr. Bumblefoot's going to rock us in. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Yeah, we got a great lineup for you tonight. From the swamp and the creepypasta legend, Swamp Dweller is here with us to share some spooky encounters and stories. And as you all know, if you're a regular to this show, we will also play in hour number 3 our favorite Swamp Dweller story of the day. Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio will talk some legendary Sasquatch. We got Shirky Poo's News, the Thought of the Dave as well. And like I just said, our good friend Swamp Dweller from YouTube is here tonight to share some tales with us. He is one of the most popular creepypasta channels on YouTube. He's got over 252,000 subscribers listening to his stories from everything from forest rangers to skinwalkers to Sasquatch, aliens, UFOs, and every ghost in between. His channel is telling stories submitted by his audience members of some of the creepiest and scariest encounters with creatures from around the world, and tonight he will share them with us. Mr. Swamp Dweller, it is always a pleasure to have you here on Spaced Out Radio. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Dave, and it's always a pleasure to be here on Spaced Out Radio and get to see all of your beautiful faces here in the chat.
You know, some of us need a shave, though. Some of these beautiful faces do. I'm not going to lie about that. What have you been up to? It's been a couple of months. We had you on about a month before Christmas time. How you liking 2022 so far?
It's been pretty rocky. I caught COVID not that long ago, so I was kind of down for the count there. Then directly after, I got a sinus cold, so it was just like kind of a double whammy for me. But outside of that, everything's been great. Just been working on a lot of great stories and good content for everybody.
For people who do not understand what creepypasta is, give us a detailed description of what you do.
Well, what I do specifically isn't technically always creepypasta. Creepypasta itself is more of like a fictional thing. So sometimes I will do fictional stories that are classified as creepypasta, but the majority of what I do is viewer submitted stories that are allegedly true. So somebody will allegedly encounter, say, a Bigfoot and send in that story to me, and I will share it in such, episode. And I also, on occasion, do true crime documentaries, cryptid documentaries, and such and stuff like that. A little bit of everything, jack of all trades, master of none.
I will tell you this. We added you about a month ago to our third-hour programming, and I have talked to my radio station owners and a lot of people about that, and they were like, man, that swamp dweller, he absolutely scares the daylights out of us each and every night with those creepy stories. Is that what you're going for with your fans, is to give them a little bit of spookiness?
Yeah, for sure. That and to definitely entertain. My biggest goal is to try to just suspend your disbelief, try to make you really feel like it's happening to you, to feel like, you're right there. You can feel what, they're feeling. And that's what I do my best to convey it, like in the first person, to try to, convey my own experiences and, obviously my experience of doing this for so many years now, of just trying to make it seem like, hey, these stories happen to me. And I just feel like it just makes it more authentic and, just gives you a good scare and, it's just more enjoyable that way.
Even for a lot of your fans who are listening in, you're kind of this mysterious guy. You don't like being on camera. I mean this as a compliment because I am as well. I think you're a little bit introverted and like to keep to yourself. Yet there's a lot of people out there who may not know who the swamp dweller is. So I'm curious, how did you get started in this? And did you ever think that this would become a career for you?
You're definitely right. I've always been kind of more of a quiet, reserved guy. I'm not really a social butterfly unless I know you. Definitely introverted. I don't necessarily hide like who I am and my identity. Like you can go on Instagram and stuff like that and see pictures of me, even in like ads on my videos. Sometimes I'll do like sponsors for like Magic Spoon or something, and you'll see like me in the thing eating the cereal and stuff. I'm just not really. I don't really like to sit on camera. I've never just been super comfortable with that. It's just not my thing, really. I've tried it a few times. It's not my thing. But with the channel, I never really envisioned it being what it is now. I remember when I first started it, it was entirely just because I was bored and didn't really have any hobbies and wanted to do something that I was interested in. So I was interviewing people who were either researchers or experiencers of cryptids and paranormal things, I guess anomalies in general. I interviewed people like Vic Cundiff from Dogman Encounters, Linda Godfrey, pretty much everybody who was ever on Monster Quest, stuff like that. And it was fun. And then eventually I kind of got bored after about 30 episodes. I was like, what else can I really ask people at this point? And I had been sent all these stories from people who wanted to send their stories to me but didn't want to be on the show or interviewed. And I just figured, what if I start narrating these and putting them out as like some of the people that I was seeing were doing it. I was good friends at the time with a guy named King Spook who was like pushing me to try to do content similar to him. And he was like an original creepypasta channel from back in the day. And yeah, so when I started doing this, I just was like, if I could just hit 10,000 subscribers ever, I would be super excited. And that was pretty much my only goal. And that was like about almost 6 years ago now. And now we're at over 250,000, and it's just, just every day it grows, and I'm just very grateful to be where we're at. Could never have imagined this.
The first time I interviewed you, you were, I believe, at 242,000. You've gained 10,000 subscribers in the last 7 months, and I think people just love what you do. They really do. And you need to be congratulated for that. I don't know how the hell you figured out the YouTube algorithms in order to be successful, because I look at it and it's like looking at Greek or Arabic on a chalkboard. There's no way I'm going to be able to read it. But I think that, you having that talent in order to do so, and people getting the amazing stories, I think your hard work needs to be commended on that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like I see that a lot in the comments, and people enjoy this stuff, and that's, ultimately, the greatest pleasure for me, I guess, is, seeing people enjoy the content and just trying to make it better, and, just trying to take any criticisms that I can and apply it to the content to just, be better and better. And that's pretty much just all it's ever been, is just consistency and just always being that one narrator that is going to upload. I've never missed an upload on my schedule. If I said I was going to upload every day, I uploaded every day. If I was going to upload every other day, I uploaded every other day, and I just made sure that content was there for you guys. And that's pretty much all it is. Like, I'm not the biggest, by far am I the best, but I'm very grateful and very happy for where I'm at.
What was it like when you hit that 100,000 mark on YouTube? Because for a lot of people, like you said, 10,000 was the goal. I know we're just like 56 people away from 15,000, but I couldn't imagine what it would be like having 100,000 subscribers, let alone over 250,000.
It was a really solidifying feeling for me personally. I had a pretty tumultuous relationship in the beginning of my YouTube career, mainly because I was working different jobs at the time. I was working warehouse jobs, and I got hurt, so I didn't really have the physical ability to actually do those jobs anymore. So it was kind of like, I have to make this thing work, and it's just very luck based. So when I hit 100K after 2 years, first year I gained 30,000 subscribers, and the second year we hit 100,000 right as we were about to go into the third year. And it felt great, especially when that plaque came in and you get the little check mark, and it just was very solidifying, just made it feel like, hey, I have something to show, like my dad, like, hey, like, this is, real. And, it's just really cool to see how this career has been able to change my life, my family's life, and just, a lot of people that I've been able to meet through the internet and just viewers that I've seen over the years. It's just been really cool.
You were somebody who literally, like, this is your full-time job. And a lot of people out there who look at YouTube and they'll be like, I don't know how I can do that. How do I make a living off of YouTube? You're one of, let's face it, there's millions of channels out there, but in the grand scheme of things, there's very few out there that are actually making and have the ability to make a living off of this. How scary was it for you on a personal level to actually quit work, quit having a daytime job like the regular people like us out here, and taking on this full time? I mean, there had to be some nerves for you.
Yeah, like I said, it was a very tumultuous time in my life. I was going through a lot of changing and growth and such, and yeah, it was a challenge. And I had already struggled with being homeless before, living in my car and stuff, and that's where even in the beginning of the Swamp Dweller channel, I was narrating in my car because I was unfortunately living in Walmart parking lots. And it was really, a do or die. It was like, I really loved YouTube. I really was falling in love with this narrating thing. I was really enjoying this Swamp Dweller thing I was creating, and this amazing community that was being curated. And, I just saw something that nobody else was seeing at the time, and just really did my best to make it happen. And all these years later, I've just never stopped, because I still see something bigger than what it even is now. I see something much bigger in the future. So
that is amazing. To go from living in your car to and your financial success is none of our business, but to anything to improve your life and to work hard and see that hard work pay off. I mean, do you ever just look at yourself in the mirror and just smile at yourself and show yourself some love, thinking, man, you said you were going to do this and you did it, man. You did it, and you're a success story.
Yes. Because I think you have to sometimes. This is one of those jobs that's like very mentally demanding, and you're kind of sucked into this like realm, this kind of cube of YouTube and content online in general, and you kind of get stuck in this weird warped world of social media sometimes, and you just have to pull yourself out and just remind yourself that your hard work has this is the fruits of your life sometimes. a lot of people might look from the outside looking in, they might not know what it took to get to where you are. But, you know what it took, and you have to kind of appreciate that because nobody else is going to appreciate it. And it's the same when it comes to, like I said earlier, it was do or die. Like, who was going to come and save me? Nobody. I had to save myself. So it's the same when it comes to that stuff. Sometimes you have to be the one that compliments yourself.
Going from your car to where you are now, you make a good living. I don't need to know, the fans don't need to know what you make off your channel or anything like that. That's none of our business. But when you finally decided for yourself that you made it where you're going to be comfortable again, did you spoil yourself a little bit? Did you get yourself a treat, like maybe a new watch, or just took yourself somewhere on a little getaway?
Not really. I have taken like little vacations and stuff and whatnot, but what I've really done is just made sure, everything, like my family is taken care of, like make sure like my dad and his house is good, make sure that I have a place to live, just stuff like that. And sometimes I will, take little vacations and such like that. I'm kind of almost like a minimalist, honestly. I don't really like having a lot of stuff, I don't really like having a lot of status symbol things just because, it makes you a target and it's just unnecessary. But I don't know, kind of. I like to splurge on more of like things that are good for other people. I like to see other people smiling and laughing and stuff. So if I can do something for somebody else, and it makes their day better, that's pretty much what I'm looking for.
Dude, you are a humble guy. You very much are, and I think many of us out there, myself included, no matter what age we are, can take a lesson from that. I really do. And, I'm not trying to give a shameless plug here for what we're doing, but just a few days ago, my buddy Merle and I started our own story channel called Canada's Great Unknown. And I'd come to you a couple of weeks ago because I wanted to get your permission. I respect you a lot, and I didn't want to feel in my own heart that I was stepping on your toes. And for you to kind of, give us the thumbs up and say, go for it, man. Go have some fun with it. And kind of be like very encouraging about starting Canada's Great Unknown. I mean, dude, I can't thank you enough in doing that. And it's only been on for a couple of days. We got, 150 some subscribers, not a lot, but I'll take that over a 3-day period, almost 200. And I wouldn't have done it without your support. And that is how much I respect you and the job that you have done and how our audiences have really pushed themselves towards supporting your channel as well. And I think you got a lot of love, man, and you deserve the love and recognition that you get.
Well, I appreciate that, brother. Thank you very much for the kind words. It's always, I don't know if it's just me, but maybe it's just being the introvert, but I've never really known how to like take compliments very well. I've never wanted to come off as somebody who's like egotistic. That's why I don't really like to post milestones or really even talk about any of that stuff, because like to me, like that stuff matters somewhat, but like, in reality, it's like I've always seen like, like the subscriber thing, like that's something that only exists on like this website. Like when I walk outside, there's not like this magical number above my head there. People will be like, oh man, that guy's got clout, that guy's famous. It's like, because I'm not, people aren't running up to me being like, oh my God, swamp dweller. So I like to just kind of keep myself, I guess you could say humble, but more just like realistic and just treat people how I want to be treated. I want people to treat me like a human being. I hate nothing more than when people talk to you like you're an animal because they think you're like a celebrity or something, I'm just a human being living, and we're all equal, and this is how it is, man. Maybe I sound like a hippie right now. I don't know.
You would do well in the British Columbia forest in my town where I am. You would do very well, as we got about 5 minutes before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. I know I ask you this question each and every time, but our audience is always different from every time that you are on. You have so many topics on your YouTube channel, and I know you're right now really fascinated with these not deer type of creepy cryptids that people are seeing. Outside of that one, what do you love about your channel? What topics really get you going when all of a sudden those emails come in and people are seeing this strange creature?
It's more of just the pattern. That's something that I've always really loved doing. And I used to make maps on Google Maps back in the day. Maybe I should start doing that again, of like sightings of like Dogman and Bigfoot. Like, I like to follow the pattern because sometimes you can see, I would contact like people who have submitted these encounters, and then I would kind of see where in the state that it was in the kind of, or it's kind of just make connections, and you can kind of follow a trail, and you can kind of see that like this stuff makes more sense when you really try to put a timeline to it, because it's not just a bunch of random people copying each other online a lot of times, which a lot of stories are. You know, I'm sure tons of Skinwalker stories and Bigfoot and Dogman stories are just people, you know, pulling things out of thin air. You know, it's what the internet is. But it's hard to ignore things like, say, a not deer, when so many people that would have no idea how to contact each other are sending in stories from all across the country, all across the world sometimes, with these very similar encounters, all the way down to like the feeling they got from it, the sounds, the eyes, you know, the everything about it. So that's what I like the most, I'd say. It's just like things where you can like kind of put it together, so where like that allegedly true tag kind of, you know, feels fitting. And I would also say, like, just when people send me things that I've never heard of, like the crocota or a coracoda, excuse me, it's just like super interesting and super obscure, and I just really like learning about things like that and bringing that to the audience, because if I didn't hear about it, I'm sure a lot of you guys have never heard about it. So just things like that. It's just like the satisfaction of being like, oh man, I'm going to teach a bunch of people stuff. At heart, I think honestly, if YouTube never worked out, I would have probably been a history teacher, because I just love teaching people like cool history and like obscure history.
Do you like the older stories that, say, happened 50, 100, 200 years ago, comparatively to what people are experiencing now?
Honestly, I would say that the stories that people send in now are a lot more believable. And the best example I like to say is Bigfoot. Back in the day, people, and this is, you know, copyright, I'm just kidding. No, but people were originally looking for a monster, and now they're looking for answers, right? So originally when Bigfoot came around, they were looking for the biggest foot cast ever. You know, they were like these big, like 3 feet long feet, but now it's suddenly become like 8, 9 inches, such like that, much more, you know, realistic to what would be an actual animal, because we went from looking for monsters back in the day to actually looking for answers now. And I feel like that makes the stories better now.
You know what? I would agree with you. And I think the reason why is, and we see this a lot in the UFO community as well, is there is so many people out there who are expecting science to all of a sudden take this all over and be, you know, on the forefront of finding these creatures. Whereas, I don't know about you, but I really believe that these experiencers, whether it's aliens or Sasquatch or paranormal people, actually are the ones who have the answers. You know, they just haven't put the puzzle pieces together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I 100% agree.
You know, we got about 1 minute left here before we got to go to break. Swamp Dweller is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. And for you, you know, how many videos a week are you putting out for your fans?
Usually between 4 to 5.
Wow. And they're all like 30 minutes long.
Usually, yeah.
Wow. I mean, I would love to be able to do that. Love to be able to do that. I would. I got to wait, though, because I still work a full-time job. You know, still work a full-time job. I'll get there, though. I'll get there one way or another. Hey, if you're listening on in, Swamp Dweller is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, as we are going to be getting into some of his favorite stories from his YouTube channel. Over 252,000 subscribers on there. He's one of the top storytellers on YouTube, and we love having him here on Spaced Out Radio. And if you go to his YouTube channel, it is Swamp Dweller Reads, I believe. Yes, it is. Look at that. We're going to be back with the Swamp Dweller when we return. Spooky Stories next on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned. Put your shovel down if you're shoveling the snow. Put your protest sign if you got it up. Just listen in. Have some fun. Enjoy the woo tonight. All right, we're clear. We got 5 minutes. That was a good start, man.
I'm going to run to the bathroom real quick.
Yeah, you go, dude. Thank you so much to all of the people who are in here tonight who have maybe never been here before. If you like what you're hearing, we are here 7 days a week. I'm here Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Pacific to midnight. And then Lynn Wallington is here Saturday and Sunday for Spaced Out Weekend, 6 p.m. Pacific until 8 p.m. Pacific. And then after that, we have After Hours with Gemma Jade, Thin Lizzie Borden, John Hudson, and Big Willie. Yeah, and they're here Saturday and Sunday night as well. So we got you totally covered on really, really good programming. And if you like what you hear, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell. And, of course, thanks to Swamp Dweller, we've started our own channel called Canada's Great Unknown. And these are stories, just so you all know, that are strictly Canadian. So what we've asked, we're doing something a little bit different. What we've asked our audience, or our focus, I should say, focus, Dave, is we are taking Canadian stories only. And so if you're from the United States, Mexico, Britain, Europe, and you had something weird happen while you were in Canada, we want those too. You know, so if you're Canadian, or if you've been to Canada and had something weird happen, you know, help us out. Canada's Great Unknown is the name of our new channel, and we appreciate the support. I'll put the link in again. Not trying to shameless plug anybody here, but especially myself, it is my show, so oh well. Thank you, Cat Chaser, for the awesome super chat, along with Simon down in Australia. The super chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on a nightly basis, so thank you so much. Who's joined us late here? Stevie Franchise, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. And who else has come in here late that we want to say hello to? I'll put you up there. And Digger Dog. Hold on. Who did I see here that came in late? Mystics Walk. There you are. I didn't want to miss you. And anybody else? Thanks, Millennium. I enjoy it. I do. Sometimes I get tired, but I enjoy it. Let's see. The gorgeous Jean Beckett has returned. All right. I think we're good. I think we're good so far. Swamp Dweller must be back in his chair right now. Putting the headphones on. There you are. Randy Spurl, nice to have you back. That was a quick half hour, man.
Oh, yeah, time flies when you're having fun, right?
I am having a blast with you, buddy. Having a blast.
Or when you're in a continuous time loop. Do.
You know what my favorite topic is? Honestly, is I actually should say a few. But these stairwells in the middle of the forest, those ones scare the daylights out of me. I don't know what I would do if I came across that. And time travel. Those are my stories.
That's pretty crazy. I've been getting sent a lot of like missing time stories recently, and there's been a lot of those in videos. And some people might not find them creepy, but I've had it happen to me once or twice where I don't think it was anything to do with aliens or anything, but like it's just always weird to like not remember like a time period or something. Like say if you black out at the bar or something, like it's just like such a uncomfortable feeling. So I can only imagine when you're like hiking deep in the woods and suddenly you're just like, oh, it's been 16 hours, and you're like, what?
Yeah, no
I've
kidding.
been gone 20 minutes. Like,
dude, I was telling a buddy of mine in town here. about the channel that we're setting up, or that we've now set up, Canada's Great Unknown. And he was in the Canadian Navy, and he goes, I got a story for you. I said, what's this about? He goes, it's when I was in the Navy. And I'm not going to go into too many details because I want people to hear it, but he actually tracked a UFO while as a radar operator back in 1983.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's like...
That's a story.
It's a great story. Great story about how just... You know how the radar just goes like around and you get that ping when it gets to the top? That's what he was. Yeah. That's what he was on. And he said, like, 1 second it's there, or there's nothing there. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning where everything is supposed to be boring. And then all of a sudden the next second, boom, there it is. It's like 200 nautical miles to his west, and it's going like at 50 knots straight due north as they were heading towards Alaska. So, I mean, all of a sudden to get I now know what you mean by these stories, man. I now know what you mean, and it's really cool. Hold on 1 second here, my friend. We're going to get going. And give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways. Here we go, the second half hour. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Appreciate each and every one of you tuning us in tonight. Thank you so much for the love. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We turn off the lights. We get a little dark. We get a little spooky as the man from the swamp joins us tonight. Swamp Dweller from the YouTube channel Swamp Dweller Reads. We highly suggest you go hit subscribe on that. He has one of the largest storytelling channels on YouTube, and we're glad that we're good friends with him around here because he allows us to enjoy the swamp with him. Swamp Dweller, welcome back.
I'm glad to be here, brother. Thanks for having me on once again.
All right. Right before the break, I was asking you about, your favorite kind of stories. And one of the topics that you have been really looking into over the last little bit here is these weird things called not deer. For a lot of people, they're going to say, what the hell is this, man? Fill us in.
Well, these not deer creatures, also called tall deer, in some cases, even maybe called deer men, who knows in what culture. But essentially, they are exactly what the name says. They are these creatures that look like deer, but they don't act like deer. They have these almost supernatural aura to them. They have normally very bloodshot eyes. They're standing on hind legs. They have massive racks of antlers. They're normally 7 to 10 foot tall, and they are unnaturally fast. They can run on their hind legs very, comfortably. And they have very similar traits to what you would expect to hear from something like a skinwalker, where they've been said to potentially mimic human voices. They can sometimes even change their color or something like that for a camouflage aesthetics and such like that. And they seem to be fairly menacing, but from what I understand, most of the time they don't seem to be very deadly. But I'm not entirely sure where they originate from. Like I said, tons of cultures, from Native Americans to other indigenous First Nations peoples, have always had stories about things like this, but the not deer term is a rather recent one, I would say.
How tall are these? Are these like skinwalker size? Are these dogman size?
Well, they're usually roughly like 7 to 10 feet in these encounters when being submitted, but it seems like almost every monster is like 7 foot tall, like Shaq, but it's pretty tall.
You make a good point. I mean, it's amazing how everything seems to be between that 7 and 10 foot tall range. I mean, what do you think about that? Do you think that's just what people get used to seeing?
I think it's a mix of a couple of things, and I guess I'll touch on a few. I think one is kind of placebo. I feel like so many people in the past, especially with the skinwalker craze being so big over the past 10 years, people have heard that it was 7 feet tall, so many times, where I feel like when people see something, especially like when a bear stands up or a deer, or any sort of horse-like animal kind of rears up on his hind legs, you're like, oh man, that thing was like 7 feet tall. So I feel like it's just more of like a natural urge, kind of a placebo thing. But at the same time, I feel like it's fairly accurate. I mean, if I were to see a really big deer standing hind legs, 7 to 10 feet, with the antlers would be rather, in that area, I'd say.
Well, you know what? These not deer, are they aggressive? Are they just there to scare you? Are they giving telepathic messages like we hear from a lot of people who encounter these dogman-like creatures?
Yes, I actually did share one. I think it might have even been in the last not deer episode, where it seemed like the not deer creature was sending telepathic voices to him, and maybe at some point even actually audibly making these voices. I'm not entirely sure, what their intent is. I don't think anybody would know. But, from what it seems like they're fairly aggressive, but it seems like it's more of just like, I'm going to scare the absolute crap out of you and until you leave. I'm not entirely sure. I've read stories where they've killed other deer, or they've attacked people, or they've chased them, but I've never read anything where somebody dies or somebody's being, necessarily, I guess, harmed or maimed, but definitely hunt down people. But their intent entirely, I don't know, but I wouldn't want to find out myself.
No, me either. Speaking of you finding out yourself, are you an experiencer of the unknown?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've experienced a ton of stuff, from ghosts to what may even be cryptid stuff. One of the things that actually got me to start my whole podcast in the beginning was when I went on a podcast called Dogman Encounters, because I had a strange encounter with something one night coming home from work, and I was looking it up online and found this show and went on and chatted with the host, and he was kind of like, I think you have a good voice for this. You should try it out, and that's what happened.
Oh, so blame Vic Cundiff. Yeah. Shout out to Vic Cundiff.
Blame Vic Cundiff for me being here. I'm great guy for sure. Great show for Dogman Encounters. But honestly, I've seen a lot of weird things that I can't explain, and I am still a genuine skeptic, though, at the end of the day. So, like, I am willing to concede that a number of things could have affected a lot of these encounters, but I've had some pretty clear encounters to where, like, I'm not going to let anything sway that. So it's just one of those things where it's like, man, I'm kind of on the fence, but I definitely believe there's more than we can explain in this world.
This leads to Manuel's question. Normally I don't get to questions until hour 2, but I'll throw in Manuel's here. What is your scariest experience that you have had?
Oh, man. I get asked this question a lot, and I kind of alternate stories because it's kind of hard to answer that question. That's a very subjective question, and fear is very emotionally tied. So I would say this. There was one time where I was down by this, like, river, and it was, like, brown because it's pretty much where all, like, the cattle are, basically taking a dump. And I remember I was there with my little brother one day, and it was just getting dark, and we noticed that we were seeing, like, these red dots on the other side in these bushes, kind of look like eyes, and they were, like, super high up off the ground. So they were probably, like, up in the trees, probably about 6, maybe 7 feet, oddly enough, ironically enough. But they were pretty high up in the tree. And at first I was just thinking maybe it's an owl or something. I was pretty inexperienced at that point. I had just moved out to that area. And so at first we just ignore it. We continue, like, throwing rocks in this little river and whatnot, and we're just kind of messing around, getting ready to walk back. It's probably about a mile back to our house. We're out in the middle of nowhere. This is like East Tennessee, so it's very far in the middle of nowhere. And I just remember suddenly hearing these like weird like yipping sounds that they're kind of like coyote yips, but they were like much more shrill. And then I remember looking back and we see these, I don't even know how to explain, like these, like it's like these shadows basically is all I can explain. It's like these shadows in the tops of the trees, and they're kind of jumping between these 2 or 3 trees, and they're making these like shrill yipping sounds. I wish I knew how to explain it. It's just like, imagine like a coyote just distorted. It was weird. And I just remember me and my brother like literally just basically freaking out and running. And there was one point where he like tripped and I had to like literally carry him. And I'm just like, man, this sucks. But I don't know how to explain that. You know, it's like pretty anticlimactic, but it's just a story I've never known how to explain. Like East Tennessee, I don't think we got any monkeys, you know what I mean? And I've never heard monkeys make yipping sounds like that. And I don't know how you explain that. Was it some sort of animal? Maybe an exotic pet. I don't know. There was an alpaca farm down the street. So, I mean, weirder things have happened, I guess.
You know what's funny is, I don't even think I've ever told you this story. In 2018, my buddy Merle and I and our good friend Mark went into where Canada's largest mass murder happened. And it's a plane crash about 25 miles southeast of where our headquarters is. And when we were there, Merle was doing his paranormal investigation because he's a geek like that. And I love him to death. He's very good. And then we took this deer trail to see if there was any more crash debris on the ground. And we come across this meadow through the trees, and Merle and I decide we're going to cross the meadow. Mark, who's our armed guard in that area, states, you know what, I'm going to stay here because I have a good sight line in case any predators come. So we walk across this meadow about 30 yards from Mark, and we come to this boulder that's about 4 feet out of the ground. And within about 2 minutes of us being there, we start hearing this Sasquatch talk. But we didn't realize it was a Sasquatch. That like what you hear on on a lot of the videos where that grumbling sound, that like that. And I look at Merle and I'm like, dude, did you hear that? And he's like, yep. And we called over to Mark to see if it was Mark. And Mark's like, no, man, I didn't say a thing. And then it happened again. Well, we go back to the crash site. Merle sets up by this debris. He's a little weirded out. I'm kind of in between him, and Mark goes into this cul-de-sac area where the recovery vehicles cut out this cul-de-sac in the trees in the forest so that way they could get the bodies out and some of the crash retrievals. And about 20 feet behind Merle, this creature, whatever it was, actually followed us. And it snuck up behind Merle about 20 feet behind the bushes and started like huffing and puffing and grunting and shaking branches and stomping its feet. And Merle got freaked out, and I called over to Mark. I said, Merle's got something up here. And as I'm saying that to Mark, Mark's back is to me. He puts his hand up like this, and then he takes his backpack off and literally aims his rifle into the trees in front of him because there's something else coming at him. And eventually, we realized that we were surrounded, and we got pushed out of there. That is God's honest truth, and we've been back there numerous times, man, but I would love to have that happen again. I mean, even honestly, Swamp, even if I die when that happens, to me, that's a good death, if being ripped apart by a Sasquatch. I'm okay with that. I'm at peace with that, man.
I hear that, brother. I hear that. I've had just a lot of weird and unexplainable moments, but it's always hard for me to say what's the scariest moment in my life. Because, I mean, there have been times where my life has been in danger, but had nothing to do with anything supernatural. Just, obviously sometimes humans can be scarier than any monster.
Oh, very true. Very true. Speaking of monsters, have you ever had any stories about these stairways in the middle of the forest? Have you had people report to you on that?
Yeah, I've been sent a few things on that. I've never really known what to think. I've had a story sent in where um, a boy and his brother, they're probably like early teens, like preteen type age, running through the woods, playing in the woods, and they notice this staircase that they've never seen before, and they are kind of looking at it, and the older brother kind of gets a weird feeling from it. And he's like, I don't know if I want to mess with that. But the little brother is like kind of coming to it and like being like, oh, I want to climb it. And there's like, this staircase is like immaculate. It's like this really nice Victorian era, like super nice banister, but like it goes into nothing. And it's just there. And it looks like it's always been there, but they've played there a million times and never seen it. And the little brother is being yelled at, being like, yo, don't go up these stairs. And he's telling him that he doesn't want to, but he has this feeling that he has to. So I'm assuming these stairs had this almost like luring type effect on them, on him personally. And when he got to the top, it literally he just disappeared, and the stairs disappeared as well. And they never saw his brother again. And there was like actual like legit like missing persons report that went with that story. I could try to find it. But that story always like kind of scratches my head because it could just be some crazy folktale somebody put on, a missing kid story. But it's just one of those stories that was sent to me that I've always just been like, wow, what the heck, man? Those stairs. Like, I was like, if I ever see stairs like that, which I've seen like stairs. Like, it's weird that people do this. Like, I don't understand. Like, I've seen like chimneys left over, random stairs left over from like where houses used to be. And like anytime I see that, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to touch that. So I'm like the same way as like walking under a ladder too. I'm not like superstitious, but sometimes I'm like, been read a few stories about that one.
Yeah, there is no way that I'm going up that stairwell. I see one of them stairwells, I am out. I'm honestly out. I'll get ripped apart by a Sasquatch, not a problem. I'm okay with that. But to see one of these stairwells, not going. And the funny part about it is just people who have, and I've never seen them, but I've talked to a number of researchers over the years who have investigated these stories. And like you said with this young lad, the people who have ran into these stairwells in the forest are absolutely creeped out by them. Like they just do not understand what is going on and why they're getting a scary feeling. It's, especially when you get people who are familiar with the area. And all of a sudden, they've been there 20, 30, 40 times, or maybe it's in their back 40, and all of a sudden this stairwell is in the middle of a trail.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's more of like an ignorance is bliss kind of thing because you see it in like so many stories, like easily like 75% people will be like, I'm an avid outdoorsman, or I'm super experienced, or I've been here, I know this place like the back of my hand. And while I also knew the woods that I grew up in like the back of my hand and made trails all through them, I also kind of understood that this is a natural inclination that all animals on this planet have. When there's danger or a predator around and you're defenseless, you're going to feel it. That feeling of being watched is a real feeling. I'm sure everybody has experienced it once or twice in their life. I have too. That's why I feel like the ignorance is bliss thing. Like people have like this false confidence that they've built up because they've been in this area so long, and because they haven't seen, say, a mountain lion or a cougar. Oh, so they must not be here. It's the kind of like the same logic where people are like, oh, well, I didn't see it, so it didn't happen. So it's kind of like one of those kind of things. But I just think it's like a false sense of security people have out there.
All right, what else would you not want to experience out of all the stories you have covered?
Oh, man, there's so many things.
Come on, there's got to be something that freaks you out.
Man, I would say probably anything that has to do with the not deer, Wendigo type thing, just because the lore of them are so brutal and vicious, and essentially it's kind of like a death sentence in a way. But something that I think would be even more creepier is just anything paranormal, because I've had so many like paranormal experiences in my life to where I just feel like what you can't see, what you can't understand, what you can't, necessarily feel is so much more terrifying than like seeing this monster and being ripped apart. I don't know why. To me, it's just more of like that psychological torture of not knowing what's doing what to you,
Yeah. I think for me, the one creature that really scares me, and I know they're in my area, is Dogman. I do not want to cover a Dogman. I never want to see one. I had a really strange experience with my partner a few years ago where it felt like there was something evil watching us in the forest and was really angry that we were there. We never saw it, but dude, you could cut the tension like a knife. And I've been around bears, and I'm sure you've heard these stories too, my friend, where people who are experienced, you know when there's a bear coming around. You could feel it, or a cougar, or a moose or something. There's always signs. But when you get into the supernatural, and if you've had a number of experiences, you can tell when something isn't right. And you get that real uncomfortable feeling as you just talked about. And we actually had that feeling to the point where, we wouldn't even let our son out of the truck. That's how weird it was. And it was so, I don't even know how to explain it, man. But it was so odd because when I took my chain, we were looking for firewood. And I took my chainsaw out of the truck and I said really loudly in the forest, we're just here to take these 2 trees. These 2 trees are a fire hazard to the forest, and that's all we want. Once we get these trees, we will leave. And the tension actually came down a little bit, but that entire time that we cut down the trees and we were loading them into the vehicle, dude, it was nuts. And then we went down that same road about another 3/4 of a mile to a mile, and the tension there was double. Like, we just got the hell out. It was so uncomfortable. And, I've seen Sasquatch. I've seen some weird stuff. And the only thing that I could compare this to was, I know there has been Dogman sighted in that area, and I think we were being watched by that. I have no proof. I have zero proof. It's just a feeling. Just a feeling.
And sometimes a feeling's all you need, man. Honestly, that reminds me of this story from Saskatchewan I got sent recently. It's like a giggling Sasquatch type thing. Excuse me, where they have these, there was this, these silhouettes they were seeing of these, cone head-shaped Sasquatch-looking things. And they would see, the silhouettes all the way up to the elbows, but it would never come any closer for them to see it at night, just outside the light of the tree line. But they would be making these god-awful, dreadful, giggling sounds. Something that I've always felt creepy that will make me nope out of something super fast is, if you walk into an old house or some area and you just hear, kids giggling and there are no kids there, I will probably you'll probably won't ever see me again. I might just turn into a ghost myself. But, so I can imagine when you have these 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot tall ape creatures out there with these giant cone heads that look like they're John Cena, being super buff looking, and they're just making these almost little kid laughter noises. And all they would do is come up to the tree line of their house while they were sitting on their porch smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee and stuff, and they would just giggle at them.
I had a friend of mine here in town. He used to be a logger. And right before he quit logging due to injury, he was cutting. He was running a cutter, and he looked off in the distance. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning, and he saw this big shadow walk up to this tree. A pretty good sized tree, because you could see the tree probably 500-600 yards away, and it was just kind of over the horizon where the sun was just starting to come up, so he had the entire silhouette. And this thing, whatever it was, started shaking this tree voraciously. And he goes to his boss. He goes, "What the hell is that over there?" The boss of the forestry says, "You don't see anything. You don't see anything, you don't report anything, you don't tell anybody about that." And he held that. He held that until he told me the story one day. Because the logging crews up here are so afraid of losing their contracts by reporting in Sasquatch that it is, when you have millions of dollars on that logging cut, on the line. That pays your employees' year, your equipment, and everything like that. That's a big tab. Very big tab. And they're not going to release that, man. They're not. So, Swamp Dweller, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. Our main man, our good friend, our great storyteller, Swamp Dweller, is here with us tonight on Spaced Out Radio. He has one of the top storytelling channels on YouTube called Swamp Dweller. You're going to want to subscribe to this. Over 252,000 subscribers to hear his spooky stories put out on a daily basis. You can submit your stories to swampdweller.net. We'll continue with your questions and some spooky stories as well. We continue in the swamp in hour 2 right after this. All right, we're clear.
Sounds great. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What's up, Brown Dwarf? Good to see you, man. Brown Dwarf has been around since, I was doing the podcast way back when I first started.
Brown Dwarf started hanging out with us since the last time you were on.
He's everywhere, man. He's a good guy for sure, doing good stuff. Got a lot of good Bigfoot and Sasquatch stuff on his channel and stuff.
I'll have to check that out.
He's out there in the field. He's got some stories, I'm sure. He could definitely be a good guest, potentially.
Nice. We'll take you up on that. Brown Dwarf, hit up our crew. You're here enough. You know who they are. Let's get you on and talk some monsters. All right. We got about, this break's about 6 minutes, so we got about another 5 minutes to go.
Sounds good to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hello, gorgeous Carabakiver. Aren't you supposed to be sleeping? Who else do we have here? That's showing up here. Stunning Steph Dickey. Oob to Joe's Maine. You've got aliens. He really does. TMI, good to have you here. On Twitter, on Twitch, Scottish Tofu, how you doing? Welcome. Dirty Filth, welcome back. Eddie, the weather right now outside my home. What's the weather? We got about 10, 11 inches of snow today. It is 25 degrees Fahrenheit, -4 Celsius, so it's pretty warm. We're expecting more snowfall tomorrow until the weekend. We are in what you call right now the fake spring, or the faux spring. Sean Culbertson, welcome to our channel. Oh, it's Heather, though. Hiding as Sean Culbertson. Hi, Heather, hiding as Sean. How are you? Welcome to SOR Chat. Grey Wolf Paranormal, welcome. Manuel, I will be in Las Vegas for the SOR fan party, and that's about as close I'm getting to SoCal this year. So you're going to have to come up on April 22nd to 23rd or 24th and hang out with us at the Golden Nugget. Everyone is invited. You know what? We're not saying no to anybody. If you want to hang out with us, you come. It's just that easy. Good weekend getaway with a bunch of cool people. You know? Yeah, lovely Lynn LeBlanc says, Swamp Dweller is the reason I'm an SOR regular also. Absolutely, Lynn, and we're glad you're here. We are
It's good to see the Swamp Dwellers hanging out over here at Spaced Out Radio.
I know, I'm very thankful for that. Very thankful. So, anyways, getting back to the faux spring that we are in right now, it is, I'm in British Columbia. I'm in central British Columbia, in the Caribou region. And what we're going to, usually what happens is, by that second week of February, it drops to about between -29 Celsius and -40 Celsius, which is -40 Fahrenheit as well. It gets cold here.
Sounds like it's a little cold.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, you don't want to go outside. Like, literally, dude, you're outside for like 30, 40 seconds. Your fingers start to ache. It's brutal.
Oh, man. I just wouldn't go outside. It's just that simple.
Hey, Y grew up in Kimberly and Trail. Wonderful. Oh, that's a nice area, Kootenai area there. Lots of Sasquatch around there.
That's what they're calling them these days, huh?
Mm-hmm. Rice Lake, Ontario for Brett, pardon me. Wonderful. You got a lot of Canucks who listen to you.
Oh, yeah. We have a lot of bushcraft friends who tune into the streams and stuff. And,
nice.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I enjoy my Canadian friends, even though they roast me for not being able to remotely say any of the French stuff up there.
Oh, well, that's okay. You're accepted. Jared Clausen, shout out Swamp Dweller from Niagara Falls. Absolutely. Welcome to a SOR chat, Jared. Thank you so much. We got about a minute to go here. The gorgeous and talented Nicole Sackich has arrived from snowy and blizzardy Illinois. Andy Jones from East Tennessee, thanks for joining us. I love knowing where our listeners are from. I had somebody here the other night, first time, from Serbia.
Wow.
That was kind of cool.
I always love seeing like the diversity statistics and analytics and stuff of like where people are tuning in from. It's just super cool to see like people from like the Democratic Republic of the Congo tuning in. It's like, what the heck? That's super cool.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. So you're in the Kootenays, I'm in the Caribou. I'm in a place called 100 Mile House. Brazelhoff, how you doing? Yes, the town is called 100 Mile House.
I had never sent mail to Canada like that before, and I was super confused at first. I was like, wait, what is this? He lives where? Which one's the town? Like, I was so confused. You guys do it so much differently than us.
Oh, it's not too bad. I mean, the P.O. Box thing is still the same, but that's okay. We got to get Dirty Filth to draw you some art. That's what we got to do next. We're up here in about 5 seconds as we're going to kick off hour 2 right now, everyone.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Lacertillion. Lacertillion is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with the man, the myth, and the swamp-dwelling legend. We got Swamp Dweller from YouTube. Over 252,000 subscribers tune in daily and sometimes multiple times a day to check out his spooky stories for people just like you who've had encounters that they cannot explain. Swamp Dweller, welcome back.
Appreciate you for having me, brother. Always a great time.
Hey, I want to ask you, for people who may not know, including a lot of your listeners who are tuned on in, how many emails do you get a day from your crowd?
It fluctuates, but roughly around like 100 or so a day. Sometimes it can be more, sometimes it can be less, but it's pretty rough sometimes. But I love it. The more the merrier. Sometimes I wish it was more because the more that gets sent, the more diversity I have to choose from.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and they can send you an email at swampdweller.net if you've encountered something weird or strange and want to tell you about it. Jeffrey has a question from our chat room. Is Dogman and the Rougarou one and the same?
It just depends on the ideology and mythology you believe behind, the origin of those things. But essentially, no. Rougarou is, I believe, French for werewolf. So it's just it's a little bit different from something like a loup-garou or a traditional like werewolf from like say German folklore or something like that. And basically, Dogman is Dogman all the time. It's a bipedal, upright wolf, canine, hominid type thing. And then you have obviously the lore behind a werewolf, where it is a curse-based thing where a human is being cursed and is obviously turning into this wolf creature with an insatiable thirst for human blood. And then obviously you have different things like lycanthropy and lichens and all those other ones. But essentially that's the basic difference, is one is like a curse-based thing and the other is just this alleged unknown animal.
Wow. All right, let's get to Arturo here. Do you have any stories of dwarfs?
Yes, I haven't covered any in a while, but I've covered quite a few. My favorite one is a story that was sent to me by a pretty good friend of mine, actually, from when he was a kid. And I believe this was in like Alabama. It might have been in Arkansas, one of the two, one of these states with an A. But he was probably 14 years old when this happened. He was going out with his cousin. They like to do these. I can't remember what it's called, but basically where they go mushroom hunting and they collect mushrooms and all that. And they were out there collecting mushrooms and they were hearing what sounded like little voices, but they sounded kind of dissonant in a sense, like they were echoey and ethereal in a sense. And so they got interested and they started following this noise, and they see this probably 12 to maybe 13-inch tall little creature that they can only describe as like a little person or like an elf or a fairy, except it didn't have wings. It didn't really look like an elf, but from the way they described it, it almost reminds me of like a hobgoblin almost, where it had like a piggy kind of face, these little sharp teeth that were sticking out from its bottom lip, but at the same time it was like smooth, didn't have like any hair, didn't have like any horns or anything like that. But it's just something that sticks out to me because it's just such a weird story. After that, essentially what happens is they, obviously freak out when this thing notices them, and it basically disappears in front of their eyes after making some sort of alarmed noise. The two freaking out, thinking that maybe it's calling more or it's chasing them or something of the sort. They run out of there as fast as they can. And when they're running, they hear these little feet all around them, like on both sides, behind them, every which way, and sometimes even in front of them, but they're not seeing anything. That's how fast they're running. They don't know if there's 2, 3, 4, 5. And as they're running, they notice that these things are like throwing sticks and rocks and stuff to try to trip them as they're trying to escape. And one of them actually does trip for a second, and luckily he's able to get back up very quickly. But as they are getting back up, they look behind them, and they notice what looks like multiple different sets of little people's hands coming out from the bushes on the sides of the trail, trying to grab at them. And luckily they were able to, get away and get back to their house. But ultimately, that's probably like the craziest little person story I've ever been sent, just because I've never heard of them being in numbers like that. Never heard of them trying to drag you into the bushes. I know there are tons of them, like the duende, where they eat your toes and all these other crazy little things, but I've never heard of them like grouping up in the woods like that.
The little people are very, very scary to the First Nations and indigenous people. They really are. I had a friend of mine locally here who it was just passing conversation, Swamp, where I said to him, "Hey, what'd you get up to last night?" And he's like, "I was making trinkets and little hats." I said, "Why?" I said, "Were you making it for your niece or your daughter for dolls or something?" And he kind of just looked at me and He's like, no, man, my mom had her jewelry stolen by all the little people. I was like, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, he said something happened that his mom had pissed off the little people accidentally. So for the past few nights, he had been making trinkets, and they had been baking cookies and all of this kind of stuff to put as an offering plate for the little people to return her jewelry. And so they were all sitting downstairs. They had it all in her room, lined up. And a couple days later, I asked him, I said, hey, how did that go? And he's like, well, we made the offering, and we got all the mom's jewelry back. And there it was when he went upstairs. It was all sitting on the plate. And all the tinfoil hats and the little hats that they had sewn and all the cookies were gone, and all the other trinkets they left out were gone.
Wow.
Yeah. Love those stories, man.
I do too. I just love how I love when they're not nefarious sometimes too. I love when they're just strange. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, that is such a strange thing to have happen, and just to hear it. And I almost believe it, because I used to interview a lot of people in person, and I mean, the sincerity in people when you hear this kind of stuff is just like, it's next to none. Sometimes it's just so hard not to believe them.
Very true. Let's go to Manuel again, who is asking, Swamp Dweller, have you heard any stories in Angeles National Forest about Dogman and Bigfoot?
Not about those two in specific. I'm not entirely sure if I've been sent anything from Angeles off the top of my head. I haven't done a video on it or anything, but, off the top of my head, no, I don't have anything, stored up here in my noggin.
All right. Alicia Marie is asking, have you heard any stories on various types of alien encounters? Because, we all got aliens around here, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've got an alien abduction encounter UFO sighting type episode coming soon, kind of mix of everything, ET and extraterrestrial. Yeah, I haven't been sent a ton of those over the years, but anytime I do, I'm always very excited. I've done a couple of UFO documentaries back in the day, and I'd say my favorite one was the Warminster Thing. Just because how strange it was. It had like these strange like noises that were accompanied with it. And there's also this one from Illinois that I covered where all of these different police officers from multiple different counties were like reporting, even on their radios. I've got the audio and everything in the documentary. It's super cool, of them following and chasing down what they thought was a UFO.
Wow. That's amazing. And let's continue on with our audience questions. Aiden here is wondering if you have any stories you could share on skinwalkers.
Oh, for days, brother. Oh man, they're a dime a dozen. Honestly, they're all the same sometimes. But a good one is from the good old Four Corners area on a Ute reservation that was not a Ute reservation. Excuse me. On a Navajo reservation that was shared to me when I first started. That's kind of sparked my love for skinwalker stories. And basically, they were out doing some. I'm not entirely sure what they were doing. I don't remember if it was gardening or something, something religious. But they were doing something with plants outside in the evening one night. And basically, what they were doing is they were like putting some sort of offering, and then they were dancing around it, and doing all these cool things with like a medicine man and all that. And I remember being told that one girl who was there, who was probably like 16 years old, who was new to the reservation, she was only there because I believe she was either recently engaged or recently married to one of the natives in the tribe. And she was targeted by something at that ritual that they were doing, the ceremony. And that night when they went home, they heard what sounded like scratching all on the outside of this trailer that they were living in. It was like a single wide kind of 1980s, 1970s style, kind of tin can, kind of old school little trailer that people would live in. I don't really know how to explain it more than that. And they were just hearing what sounded like light scratching under their window. and they would move the curtain, look out, and they wouldn't see anything. And then it slowly started escalating to the light scratching going to the doors and all the windows, and it would kind of just slowly circle around. And every time they would look out, they would never see anything. And then they started hearing these like thumps against the wall, like it was pounding every so often as it was doing these scratches. And then they started hearing the voices. And the voices were of like all these random people that were at the ceremony. And it was like off though. It was like almost like it was going through this like distorted speaker that like if you ever dropped like a speaker in water and it still slightly works, but it's all messed up and muffled. That's how they said it sounded. And they still couldn't see anything though when they were looking out there. So they get really annoyed, and like the husband or the fiance, whatever he is, gets his, I'm not entirely sure what kind of gun it was, but he gets a gun that apparently has this blessed ash, white ash, that apparently is meant to repel these skinwalkers. It's one of the only ways you can kill them, allegedly. And so he turns on the porch light, and he steps out there, and all of a sudden, all the sounds stop, all the scratching, all the thumping, everything stops. And he just hears what sounds like, I don't remember if it was his sister or if it was his mother, but he hears what sounds like their voice coming from the dark side that's not lit up by the porch light on the other side of the house. And he slowly starts inching towards there, and what he sees is the silhouette of this wolf creature, but it's not like a wolf, it's this person, this man almost, that's like got this pelt on, but like his feet are like half paws, half feet, and like his hands are like normal hands, but they have like these claws, and it has like these white and red like paint marks or blood marks or something on its face that's like making this weird design. And it starts like kind of whispering something at him, but in the voice of his sister or mother, like earlier. And this guy freaks out, shoots at it, and this thing kind of jumps back and seems to run away, and he runs back in the house and locks it. And for weeks and weeks after, this guy and his wife are terrified and terrorized by this thing, scratching under the windows, making the voices, jumping on the roof, just pounding, doing everything and anything that would make you terrified and uncomfortable in your own home. And eventually they got a medicine man to come and bless the home and were able to ward it off, and luckily they hadn't been cursed since.
Oh, good for them. Good for them. Do you do a lot of curses? Stories with curses?
When it comes to skinwalker stuff, especially from reservations, definitely, because that's kind of like what a skinwalker is in that culture. It's kind of like it's a witch doctor, a mercenary in a sense. A lot of times they only come after you when somebody sends them after you.
Wow. All right, let's move on to another question here because they are piling up. Game Vet is asking if you've ever heard a story of a creature with an octagon-shaped red eye.
That's oddly specific. I'm not entirely sure that I have.
All right, moving on. Christopher, welcome to our channel. Is there any lore of flaming lions or tigers or very large cats in the Michigan area?
Another oddly specific question. I know that there are sightings of big cats in the Michigan area. I know there's like these black cats that have been seen up there and such, but I'm not entirely sure about flaming lions or tigers.
You know what is happening in the Michigan forests that's awfully weird? And John Tenney was looking into this, and he set up trail cameras in his family has some acreage in the Upper Peninsula, and he was actually filming trees that would disappear and then reappear.
Oh, wow.
So, or they would move. So one moment you would have the tree right in the middle of the frame, and then it would shift over to the right, and then it would shift back to the straight where it was originally. They got moving trees.
That's very strange, because that's exactly like my last Deep Woods episode that I put out a couple of days ago. There's a story in there that's almost exactly like that, where they're going into a place where they've been a ton of times, they're walking there, but then suddenly, when they're trying to come back, they have no idea where they are. They're lost, nothing looks familiar anymore. They're seeing landmarks that they've never even seen in their lives, And then eventually, after obviously losing their mind, they finally come back to the clearing that they were familiar with. And that reminded me of that story right there. It's just so strange with these. It's like almost like a glitch in our reality.
Very much so. Very much so. Or trees can work in mysterious ways, and they have magical powers to disappear and reappear. Makes you think. Michael is asking, do you find aliens full of mischievousness?
That's a loaded question. That's a hard one to answer. I would say maybe in certain circumstances. I don't really know, what would their purpose be outside of connecting with humanity to either, take our resources and enslave us, or, work with us to make a galactic federation? I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like sometimes they have some mischievous undertones from some of the things I've heard and stories I've been sent, and the crazy government releases that come out and all that. So I don't know. I think that would be more of a Dave question.
Oh my goodness. I would say that there are aliens who play around, and I don't think all extraterrestrials are bad or evil. I think that there are some that like to joke around, like to have fun. And this is outside of the boring, monotonous alien grays that just seem to take us in the middle of the night and do weird things to us. Maybe it's happened, maybe it hasn't. I'm not going to admit anything. Yeah, I will, of course. Mr. CJ and Ozzy is asking, Swamp, would you consider doing a live stream while recording material for videos?
I used to do that all the time, and I still do somewhat regularly do live streams where I read and narrate live. I'll have people send in their stories live, and I'll read them to you right there on the spot. And other times we also have a call-in show where we have viewers call into a line that we have, and they share their story to me directly, and I kind of interview them similar to what we're doing now.
Awesome. We got about 3.5 minutes here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour here. Swamp Dweller is our guest. Swamp, what are some of these newer creatures that you're starting to hear about?
I mentioned it earlier, but the Korokata, or the Crocata, as it's known as, I'm hearing about that now. I'm hearing a lot about Washuge. There's been an odd influx of things like the not deer, like we said, and then we get the raven mockers have kind of been making a comeback in popularity, it seems, with encounters, and oddly enough, a lot of Bigfoot stuff. So, but I would say like the Crocata and the raven mocker stuff has been the most interesting and most fascinating, just because the lore and the encounters and experiences are just so strange and just terrifying. Because, like I said, when it comes to things that can kind of camouflage themselves, or even in a sense, I guess, cloak themselves to not be visible, that's the most terrifying thing, in my opinion, when you can't see what's torturing you.
Okay, what is this raven mocker thing?
A raven mocker is from Cherokee lore. It's basically, you can find a documentary on my channel called The Cryptid That Wants to Eat Your Heart. It's basic lore from Cherokee is that the old, the sick, and the weak would be protected by a certain medicine man, and it's got to be a very highly skilled medicine man, because only certain ones can even see these creatures. We cannot see them; they're invisible. When they are seen, they are mostly seen as these crows flying in the distance or cawing in the distance, and sometimes when they are seen, which is very rare, they'll be seen as crows landing and turning into what looks like a human. But essentially, these creatures will come up to the weak, the elderly, and the diseased, and they will eat their hearts. But strangely enough, there will only be a hole in the heart, but there will be no blood mess. There'll be nothing. The heart will be gone, but they'll never see any sign of any creature, any scratches, anything. And essentially, they need these hearts to be able to continue to live. And how you get rid of an attack, like I said, is you have to have this very specific medicine man who can see them first and foremost, and will use very specific medicines and magics to, repel them. And this is a very powerful medicine man who, even at his words, these creatures will flee. They are very cowardly, but they are very scary because you can't see them. And I've shared quite a few stories of them over the years, and my documentary goes in depth, very much to why they were feared.
I like Sharon's comment here in the chat room. I've seen the Black Shook, a.k.a. Devil Dog. He was gorgeous, but I'm strange like that. I love that. Thank you, Sharon, for sharing that comment, and welcome to SOR Chat. We have the Swamp Dweller for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. Then we're going to kick off hour number 3 with a great story from the swamp, as Swamp Dweller joins us each and every night with one of his spooky tales in hour 3. Then Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio is going to join us with a Bigfoot encounter story. Of course, the Thought of the Dave, Shirky Poo's News, Dave 101. We got a busy 90 minutes left on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Swamp Dweller Reads is the YouTube channel for our guest Swamp Dweller tonight. He's over 252,000 subscribers in telling spooky, creepy stories. We'll be back on Spaced Out Radio right after this. All right, bud, I'm going to take a quick bathroom break. I'll be right back, okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
I think this is where I take over the show, guys. This is now Swamped Out Radio, and I'm about to play you some sweet, smooth jazz. And I'm just kidding. Oh, boy. I do appreciate all the kind comments, though. Thank you so much. It's very much appreciated. Simultaneously, a word that I cannot say, Monica. Thank you. That's actually a lot of the stuff that I have been working on, is trying to better pronounce some of these words that I'm not too good at. I do have some moments where I cannot say certain words. Southern dialect has affected me. Basically, all I can say, guys, is words is hard.
Here comes Dave. All right. Sorry about that. All right. Magnus Zerum, welcome back. And Amy Karen, welcome back, or welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Just so you guys know, I know we got a lot of new listeners here wondering what's going on. We are a live radio show as well, so that's why we take commercial breaks, because we have to time everything out with our radio stations, so that's why we do things a little bit different, but we hope we've done enough to earn your thumbs up and earn your subscribe or subscription to this channel. We would greatly appreciate it, and thanks to Swamp Dweller, we have started our own Cryptid Tales channel called Canada's Great Unknown. I'm going to put the link in the chat room if you don't mind. Hit subscribe on that as well. We'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you to Manny, Cat Chaser, and Simon for the super chats tonight. We really do appreciate it. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. We got the Swamp Dweller until the top of the hour, but we have a full hour right after that, leading off with one of Swamp Dweller's spooky stories, which we do every night on this show. Thank you to all the veterans who have tuned us in tonight. We love you. You always have a safe home here in our chat room. And to all our regulars out there, we appreciate your love and support of this show. Here we go. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. When we go and we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, as well as on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with Swamp Dweller. We got him until the top of the hour. He is one of the top storytelling channels on YouTube, well over 250,000 subscribers, and he keeps on growing. Yeah, we love him around here. Swamp Dweller, welcome back.
I'm like a roach. You can't get rid of me, brother.
All right. We never want to get rid of you, my friend. Kason in Sri Lanka is joining us and is asking, when you curse, Swamp Dweller, is it true that the curse comes around and hits you tenfold? Have you heard of that with your stories?
I guess it really just depends, like I said earlier, on the ideology of, what kind of curse it is. But yeah, I'm sure in some cultures that's how it works.
All right, Aiden has a question for you. Have you ever done any stories on the Russian sleep experiments?
I have not personally narrated them on my channel. I actually read one that was inspired by it, and it was a little bit different, called the Arkansas Sleep Experiment, which was really cool. But no, I haven't narrated that story in specific. But it is a classic, and it's actually one of the first narrations, creepypastas I ever heard myself.
Oh, yeah, that story is just freaky. For our listeners who may not know that story, give a quick detail about it.
Essentially, it's these Russian scientists put a couple of people in a room where basically they sleep deprive them. They give them this medicine and this food, I guess, that keeps them up and all that. And there's something in the oxygen that keeps them awake as well, something along those lines. And eventually, over time, they all just go insane, kill themselves, do kind of all kinds of wild stuff, basically things that would numb your mind if you ever had to experience or see for yourself. And it just gets crazier and crazier. I mean, I really think they should make a movie out of this story, but I would highly recommend checking it out on Mr. Creepypasta or somebody like that. They do great renditions of those stories.
All right, Michael Leger is asking, have you ever found a politician while out looking for the paranormal?
Man, I'll tell you what, brother. It seems like every time I'm looking for a ghost, I stumble upon a politician.
I hear you there. I hear you there. All right, let's get over to Dirty Filth, our resident artist around here on Spaced Out Radio. He also is part of our booking team. Hey, Swampy, what kind of tunes do you like to listen to?
Honestly, I love to listen to everything. I've always been a big music fan. I know it's pretty cliche, but I listen to everything from like raunchy SoundCloud rap to like super heavy death metal. So I like a little bit of everything, but yeah, very diverse. Literally, my playlist will go from some hip hop to metal to rock to techno or, digital music, whatever you want to call it, electronic music. I like a little bit of everything. If it makes my head bop, I like it.
Right on. Right on. Now, Monica here is asking, she says, I found Swamp Dweller's channel and binged the videos. My favorite things are Sam White Owl's letters and hearing SD, as in Swamp Dweller, say simultaneously. I would be remiss if I didn't ask, how's Sam White Owl doing?
Sam is doing well. He actually just sent in another letter that I need to familiarize myself with a little bit, since I've never heard of these creatures and got to educate myself here. But yeah, he's doing great. He's got another great experience and encounter to share with us. And I'm very excited to see how that series keeps going. This is letter 15. I'm honestly just very surprised that 15 letters in, people still have such interest in what Sam has to share, and he's just extremely knowledgeable. If people aren't aware, Letters from a Cryptid Hunter is probably, my favorite series I've ever done for sure.
I'm going to tell you right now, I am absolutely addicted to Sam White Owl, and if he's listening, I would love to do an interview with you. I really would. I know he's a shy guy, and he's your guy and everything, but he has absolutely captivated me. Now, his story, for people who may not know, Sam White Owl is part of a monster hunters team that travels all around the world. If you could, give us a little bit more information about Sam White Owl.
So Sam White Owl is a part of a very secretive group known as the Hunters. And essentially what their job is that they go out and they basically take out problem cryptids. They don't always kill them. Sometimes they'll relocate them, like you'll hear in the Sasquatch letter that was the thing that started it all. And they also have times where they have to, unfortunately, many times in these stories, annihilate and take out these creatures, but not after, much loss and much injury themselves. And essentially, he is out there, keeping the supernatural world and the humanity world, the world of humans, kind of at bay and kind of keeping it, in check. And he shares tons of stories from himself, and in the future will be from other hunters as well. And it's just been a very interesting, wild ride. And the stories are always changing. From the first letter all the way to this letter, it's always insane. We've covered vampires, which I never would have thought they would exist, but after you hear the story, you're like, wow, vampires probably exist. We've covered fairies, with shoegaze, skinwalkers, everything in between. And my favorite part about it is that you learn so much, because almost every new letter is something that you probably have never heard of before.
Wow. I don't know what it would be like to be asked to join an actual monster hunting team, but that's a dream job, man. That is a dream job. I mean, I can't imagine the danger, but I mean, finding some of these creatures and dealing with them on a very frequent basis. Could you do that?
Honestly, I don't think I would be tough enough. Some of the hits this guy has had to take from some of these monsters, I feel like I would have either quit or have died in the field. But I mean, it sounds like an awesome job, but I'm not sure I'm quite Bigfoot Slayer extraordinaire.
No kidding. James is asking, what was the first story you ever read for your YouTube channel?
Oh man, I really don't know. I couldn't tell you. I do know that the first video I ever uploaded that was a narration video was a ghost encounters video, but I do not remember the story at all. That was about 6 years ago now.
Is there ever a story that over the years you've been doing this that has just really stuck out for you?
Yeah, there's always a few, but one that was very major and pinnacle that stuck out to me in the very early stage of my career was this story called The Only Vietnam Story I've Never Told, which was a 2-part series written by a friend of mine. That was this epic story of these, of this Vietnam fight, and then like these creatures burst from under the ground and start just tearing apart everybody, and it just gets crazier from there. And it's one of those stories that I never thought people would like, because back then, all anybody cared about were, these traditional, allegedly true encounters that I was sharing. So when I shared this creepypasta, I didn't think it would do anything, but it actually ended up being my first, and is still to this day one of my most viewed videos ever. But it just was like my first video that ever really exploded. So it's just was a story, I guess, that was like very memorable.
All right, let's get to another question. Brazelhoff is asking, did you do a narration on the album Love Part 3?
I get asked questions like this all the time. No, that was not me. I wish it was me. That would have been very cool. But no, that wasn't me. I guess people just have very similar inflections as me.
All right, another question from James. Have you ever lost time or been taken by aliens?
I'm not entirely sure how I would know I've been taken by aliens, but they seem to be pretty good at that mind erasing stuff. But I have had some interesting, I'm not entirely sure if you would call it lost time or a glitch in the Matrix, but I have had a couple of times, especially when I was out in the woods, where time felt accelerated for sure, where I was only out there for an hour, maybe 2, and then somehow I'm coming back and the sun's already going down. So I'm not sure if that counts, but I've had some moments like that in the past where it's just it just seems like things skipped 4 hours.
I want to ask you about this because I deal with a lot of different topics on a daily basis with this show, and one of the things that I learned is if you delve deeply into these topics like you do, have you ever created any tulpas around you? Have you ever noticed things heightened around you, your senses or beings or any type of paranormal activity since you started this?
Probably in my first year of doing the narration thing, I was talking about Wendigos at length. I was super fascinated by them when I first figured out what they were. And I had been talking about this one specific case from Canada where this creature was killing this lady's cat. She was one of those cat ladies that just had tons of cats. And this, hand on the Bible, whatever I got to swear on, one night I was on the phone with somebody who I used to do a lot of content with, and I just hear this thump against my window, this loud thump. And I look outside, and there's a dead cat that was thrown against my window. And I'm not sure if you can count that as a tulpa, but somehow the exact same thing that happened to that lady, because these dead cats were being flung at her house by what she thought was a Wendigo or some sort of monster creature, because she kept seeing these big these footprints all around her house in the snow. And obviously I'm in Florida, so Wendigos don't make a lot of sense down here in the sand and whatnot in the swamp. But the cat being thrown against the window, it left a crack in the window and literally had a blood splatter. It looked like a scene out of a movie. It was wild. I have cameras on my house and such, and there was nothing. You literally just see a cat literally come out of nowhere, zooming and just hit the freaking window. It's pretty crazy.
Have you had any black-eyed kids stories?
I've been sent tons of them, but myself personally, I've never encountered one. No.
How often are you getting black-eyed kids stories?
They're probably one of the more rare ones, but there was a time in 2017 for sure where I was getting an influx of them.
Do you see influxes like that with certain creatures?
Yeah, it comes in waves. Sometimes it's probably due to just what's trending in that whole cryptid supernatural world at the time. But there was a Men in Black wave, there was the Black Eyed Kids wave, the Skinwalker wave is still there. It's just never going away. It's like a tsunami. But there's a lot of waves of things. And I would definitely say like anniversaries of like very major sightings, like the Beast de Bray Road and stuff like that. Like I'll suddenly be getting all these crazy werewolf stories or dogman stories from similar areas.
What is a story that you will not cover? I know you have a very open book on a plethora of topics, but are there any stories that you're just like, I'm not going there. I don't want to bring this karma to me, or I don't want to bring this juju or any bad juju to my show or my channel. Do you ever get like that?
Yes and no. I would say it more comes down to like moral stuff, like when it comes to like true crime or like certain types of stories. Like I won't cover like assault stories or stuff like that or anything of that demeanor, but more of just like moralistic reasons and stuff that just makes me uncomfortable personally. Right. But when it comes to like the supernatural or just like scary broad topics in general, like there's not really anything that like I tend to shy away from. If it's entertaining and that's what the swamp dwellers want to hear, I'll take the risk and jump into it.
You have a lot of people asking you to cover a lot of different topics. With your audience, what do they ask for the most?
That's a good question. They definitely ask for, I'd say, Sam White Owl the most, for sure. Ever since Sam White Owl has joined us in the Swamp family, he has become, the number one most requested thing. But outside of them, probably like Skinwalker stories and just deep woods, state park ranger stuff. I know a lot of people have been upset that I haven't covered park rangers in like a year, but I do have a lot of good stuff coming in the park ranger realm soon, so it's going to be good.
Oh, I could use an update on that. Those ones trip me out. They really do. Oh, my goodness. I was listening to one of yours the other night where a cop and his dog and a volunteer were out looking for a father and son. And then in the sunrise in the morning, or they kept hearing the wolf calls, or the wolf whistles, pardon me. I was just enthralled. I couldn't fall asleep. I had to listen to that one to the end.
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of good strange ones out there. I love the park ranger stories. I wish we had more time. I would definitely share some.
We got time for one. We got about 8 minutes. If you want to share one, that's great. If you don't, we can move on to more questions.
Let's definitely hit some more questions. I see a couple more in there.
All right. Let's go to Teresa, who will be attending our Vegas party for our listeners, April 22nd to 24th at the Golden Nugget. She is asking, what about creepy clowns? What was with that? Do you think it was paranormal?
I think most of it was definitely just people being idiots, but that was an interesting trend for sure. But there definitely was some weird supernatural encounters for sure. I got sent some weird stuff around that time. Personally, I'm not like scared of clowns, but I don't like clowns. Like if somebody were doing that to me, or if I saw some sort of supernatural clown, I'd probably do my best to run it over with a car or something.
Oh, I hated that. Because I can't stand clowns. Clowns to me rank up there with sharks in the ocean. I don't do clowns. I don't do the ocean because of sharks. And they just freak me out. But when all of these people, were trying to go around scaring people, like back in like 2016, 2017, I loved it when all of a sudden the videos of people starting to fight back and beat the tar out of these idiots. I loved it. Vigilante justice sometimes works. You know what I'm saying? It really does.
Definitely. I agree.
I agree with you. We got about 6.5 minutes here with Swamp Dweller tonight before we have to say goodnight to him. But for you, as you continue to push the edge of all of these different types of stories, where do you want to take your channel? What's next up for you?
Honestly, I just want to continue to put out better narrations. I want to put out better sound quality. I want to change the way. I just want to change, what should be expected of a narration channel in this field, whether it's sci-fi, horror, anything. And working on some audio books and just working on a lot of interesting narration content for sure. Just trying to continue to just provide the highest quality that I can. And, if you're not learning, you're definitely falling stagnant.
Oh, very true. Very true. Let's go to Philip here. Are there any stories that you've heard of from creepy barbershop quartets?
Not that I know of, no.
I don't even know what that's about. Sometimes I just ask. But that's Philip Blair, and he has some pretty awesome questions sometimes. All right. Anything with sharks or megalodon?
Man, I don't know now that I think about it. I've read some weird stuff back in the day. Like one of my first like deep ocean videos was like these stories of like these like phantom giant great white sharks that were being seen around Hawaii. Like they were like massive, like the size of small boats and stuff. And they were apparently like attacking surfers and like attacking boats and stuff. But outside of that, I've not really done much on sharks. Maybe I should try to get people to send in some shark attack stories or something.
Oh, yeah. That is absolutely... Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, I will not listen to that one. I am so petrified of sharks, man. Petrified of sharks. I love the ocean. I do. Okay? The ocean is good for a distance. It could be over there. Just push it to the side a little bit. Because I know if I put my pinky toe in the water, that fin is going to come out of the water. I know. It's just going to happen. What scares you, my friend?
Man, I have some pretty irrational fears, but the thing that scares me the most more than anything is death. That's for sure. Like just dying, the nothingness or whatever could potentially be there. It just pains me. I hate not knowing. But besides that, I used to be, and until recently, I'm not entirely sure what changed, but I used to be deathly afraid of horses because a horse attacked me when I was like 7. So if I would actually cry like until like probably like 15 years old if you would like put me near a horse because I was so terrified.
Yeah, not me. I'll take a horse. Not a problem. But, clowns, sharks, and large snakes. No.
I've been swimming by giant alligators. I've been swimming by sharks and all that. Being in Florida, we see it all. But you put me at one point, if you would have put me near a horse,
Maybe what I'll do just to scare you one day is I will actually send you a picture of a horse.
Oh, it's not that point. Like I'm not scared. It's mainly just like if I'm next to a live horse. But even now, I don't care. I have a friend whose mom has a bunch of horses, and we always help fix the fence and stuff. And I've kind of just gotten used to it. But yeah, that one bad experience had me scared for many years.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. All right, as we start to wind things up here, where we go, what do you want your audience to know about your channel and you that maybe you haven't shared?
Something I haven't shared. I'm not sure what much more there is to say outside of that. At the Swamp Dweller channel and the Dark Swamp Entertainment in general, we provide a promise of consistency, of high quality, of daily content that's not going to cut quality to, simply have daily content. And when it comes to what we do, it's to the best of our ability vetted, and, it's as authentic as it can be, and if you're looking to share your story with a community that's very uplifting, very positive, and very intrigued by the anomalous and the unknown, well, the Swamp Dweller channel is definitely the place for you. Swampdweller.net is where you can send in stories. You can also find an email to send it directly to me as well in the description of every video of mine. And, whether it's UFOs, it's cryptids, or anything in between, you're going to find it there. Everything natural and supernatural is what I'm all about.
Just make it weird. Tell a weird, true story. Don't enhance it. Don't enlighten it. Just tell the truth. That's what makes it good, right?
Yeah, definitely. I would say my favorite stories ultimately end up just being those ones that are so strange when you're done reading it. You're like, what the heck did I just read? It doesn't always have to be necessarily the most horrific thing.
And I guess you got to tell your audience, too. I mean, if you're getting 50 to 100 emails a day from listeners, it could be a while before they hear their story on your channel.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I do try to go chronologically, but it really does just depend on the topic. If it's a topic that's highly requested that I do once or twice a month, and like a deep woods, you'll probably hear your story much quicker. But I get so many like paranormal type stories and other types of stories that I don't get to quite as often. So yeah, some stories can definitely be backed up for quite some time, but I do my best to get to them and get to as many as possible.
All right, quickly here, we got 30 seconds. Tell everybody where they can find your channel and your website.
You can pretty much find me anywhere that the internet exists and reaches. At Swamp Dweller Reads on YouTube, Swamp Dweller Reads on Facebook. And if you just type Swamp Dweller pretty much on anything, iTunes, Spotify, all that good stuff, I will pop up. And I am going to be there to tuck you in at night or scare the crap out of you.
Yeah, you do a good job doing that to me around my house after this show, because I am literally 2 hours away from my Swamp Dweller fix before I go to bed. Swamp Dweller, everyone. We'll have him on again in a couple of months. We love him when he's here. He's an amazing dude. Go support his channel, Swamp Dweller Reads on YouTube. We'll be back with a Swamp Dweller story right after this on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear, buddy. Great show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on again, Dave, and thank you, everybody in the Spaced Out Radio world, or as I like to call it when you were gone, this is the Swamped Out Radio when I'm here.
We'll let that... I actually heard that as I was walking out, and I was like, damn, that actually sounds pretty good. Swamped Out Radio. There you go. Hey, I'm free. If you need to... You had mentioned earlier on Instagram when you messaged me that you were going to give me a call. I am free this weekend if you need to ring.
Yeah, definitely. I'll give you a call this weekend, and we'll have a chat.
All right, buddy. You take care. Thank you for a wonderful show.
Definitely. Thanks for having me on, and have a great third hour.
You too. Take care, bud. Swamp Dweller, everyone. I love him. Love that kid. Yeah, I'm at that age where I call everybody kid now. I love that kid. Love him. Yeah, he's working so hard, and you know what? He is the epitome in this weird cryptid world we live in of hard work pays off, and, to have his support and him subscribing to our own brand new channel that Merle and I set up, Canada's Great Unknown, and kind of follow in his footsteps and get his blessing. That is just wonderful to me here on Spaced Out Radio. I put the link in the chat room. We're at 175 subscribers, and we just started this on Monday. I'd love to hit 200 by the end of the week. If you're liking Swamp Dweller, we're kind of doing the same thing that he is. We've taken some of our stories and we've voiced them up. I hope we do a good job for you. I hope you enjoy them. And if you could hit that subscribe button, we'd really appreciate it if you haven't already. But, you know what? You got to learn from one of the best, and that's what we're doing, Merle and myself. And, it's funny, when Merle and I were setting it up, he's like, how do you want to do this? And I literally said to him, well, what would Swamp Dweller do? Literally. I know that sounds friggin' cheesy, but that is the truth. That is exactly the truth. So... you know what? Thank you to Swamp Dweller for being an absolute inspiration for us to start that channel up. We're going to hit one of his stories, then we're going to get to Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio. Then I am going to go and give the thought of the Dave and go from there. So just sit back, relax, and... rock and roll. Rock and roll. Super Duke is in the hot seat. He is on deck. Let's check out his mullet. There it is. Look how beautiful that's looking there. Look how beautiful that's looking. Warm us up.
It's recently stylized by crashing on a mountain bike.
You okay?
No, I got hurt pretty bad yesterday.
Holy shit.
So I'm in good enough shape to do a few minutes on here, and then that's it. I'm done.
Oh, man. Why didn't you?
I messed up I had previously broken my leg right above my ankle, and it came down on the same spot, and simultaneously landed with my knee on the concrete, and then rolled it over and hurt my back. Luckily, I had my back brace on, or that would have been way worse than it is.
Oh, my God, man.
But my hip and ankle and my knee is pretty tough. That took most of the impact and didn't do anything, but my ankle and my hip are messed up.
And you did this all on a stationary bike?
No, I did this on a mountain bike. Yeah, driving through downtown Missoula where nobody knows what driving is.
Oh, goodness.
Hey, a moving object hit it.
I'm real sorry to hear that, man. Real sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, about an hour ago, I was just like laying down in pain, half asleep, going, I got to get up and do a show with Dave. What day is it? Oh, it's Swamped Out Radio. Okay, I better get up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The old Swamped Out Radio. He's stealing us. Just like that.
I know.
Just like
Dave, when you during the break, when you ran away for a second, he actually announced that he was taking over, and it was Swamped Out Radio.
I heard that as I was running away, and I was like, you got to be kidding me, man! Like, oh well, if that's the worst thing that happened, he's okay. That's okay.
He knows a good thing when he sees it. He's like, whoa, yeah, hey, I could just make this Swamped Out Radio, yeah.
Well, I'm sure he would have this up to 200,000 subscribers in no time. Right?
You never can tell. But, I guess he'll just have to stick with his own platform.
The shirts are coming soon.
Yeah, the Swamped Out Radio shirt.
Awesome. That is great. We got about a minute here, and then I'm still debating on what topic I'm going to speak on the Dave 101 tonight. I really am. Thinking about it.
Well, I got an interesting bit of news that I get to release tonight in one short story.
Nice.
So.
I'm looking forward to it. Hey, by the way, Merle has been in the chat room. We had a Merle sighting, so make sure, people, you Merle it up, and Merle it up good. Because he
Merle!
Oh, that is nice. You got to warn a guy about that, man. You got to warn a guy about that. A person could get...
That's when Merle comes into the chat room and you're so surprised you fall off a cliff.
Yeah. Oh, here it comes now. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Just for you, Duke. From Merle. That was a strong Merle. All right. Thank you to Manny, to Cat Chaser, and Simon for the super chats. Thank you to all the new people who hit subscribe tonight and on our new channel, Canada's Great Unknown. We really appreciate it. We're just like 24 away from 200 here. And here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. I want to remind you that you can check us out on our terrestrial radio affiliates across North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do you got for us, Clam? Lacertillion. Lacertillion is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Well, we had him on as a guest. Now it's time for the feature. Swamp Dweller returns with another exciting, spooky story.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. I used to spend my summers in a tiny little town in rural Nevada. My grandparents had about an acre of property that was connected to my great-aunt's 2-acre property. It was a tall, high desert landscape right on a riverbed. It had tons of huge cottonwoods, and weird things used to come up from the river all the time. Badgers, cougars, etc. I had 4 loud and fearless dogs that kind of roamed our part of the property and kept us aware of coyotes, deer, etc. If anything came near our fence line, you would know. So basically, to paint the picture, it's a country setting with loud barking dogs, lots of critters everywhere, etc. Well, my aunt's property had 2 houses. There was her main house and this house called the doghouse. It was built when her husband was still around. It was pretty much his man cave. It was super tiny 1-bedroom house, and it had a huge garage for doing metalwork, carpentry, machine stuff, etc. It was filled with his fishing and hunting gear. His friends would come over and they would drink beer while working on stuff. He passed away about 6 years prior to this. At this time, my aunt sold things that she no longer used and rented it out. She had this woman named Sherry rent it out first. I was 9 or 10 at the time, and Sherry soon became one of my favorite friends. She considered me like a granddaughter. We were both obsessed with ghost TV shows, the like. This was right when the first ghost hunter type shows were coming out. Ghost stories, all kinds of cool stuff. I was a weird little girl and wanted to hunt paranormal type stuff. There was a lot of quote-unquote evidence that maybe our property had paranormal activity. I was constantly outside trying to see what I could find. I'd always force all of my friends to explore at night with me. It was kind of fun. So, Sherry and I have lots of popcorn and getting ready to watch our scary ghost reality show. Her daughter-in-law and her grandkids also join us. Before the show started, I heard my dogs going crazy outside when my grandpa was yelling at them to shut up. The good old rural life. We looked outside and saw nothing at the time. We eventually got settled in and gathered around to start watching our show. Her son hung out on the computer and was surfing the internet on what had to been some of the worst dial-up ever. He was pausing in between loading old internet pages and watching the show. Kind of not as into it as the rest of us. This continues for about 20 minutes when he looks around, pauses, and then says, "Mom, don't freak out, but there's a man staring at you from the window." So we all look up and there is a huge guy with his hands over his eyes peeking into the living room, staring straight at Sherry. He's looking through a small paned window that was above a fireplace, so we can see his head. We all just kind of sat there in pure silence and terror and looked around at each other as this was happening. I immediately freaked out and shrank away into the blankets because I was terrified. It only takes a few seconds and the man at the window darts away. We then hear a loud pounding at the door. We all just kind of look at each other in pure terror and shock because we are setting ourselves up to get spooked. But holy crap, we are not expecting anything real. Finally, her son says, "Well, is somebody gonna get the door?" We all say no and I continue to shrink away into my blanket on the couch. Her son grabs a gun and runs to the door. He doesn't see anyone through the peephole. He slowly opens the door to find whoever it was had taken off. We called my grandparents, great aunt, neighbors, and no one was out there. No one had any idea who could be either. We then called the police, and they came out and took our statement, but nothing really ever came of it because they never found anything. Whoever it was ran away really fast. It was a dumb, unnecessary, scary moment. It was something that I don't think I'll ever forget.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Swamp Dweller, for another exciting story. Make sure you check him out on YouTube at Swamp Dweller Reads. And it is time, once again, for us to head into the forests of North America. World Bigfoot Radio's Super Duke Sullivan and his blindingly fast cape. Here we go. All right, Duke Sullivan, World Bigfoot Radio comes in with another weird, strange report on the legendary Sasquatch and Cryptids. Duke, welcome back to the show, and we want to remind everybody they can find you at World Bigfoot Radio on YouTube. How you doing, buddy?
I am hurting. Got in a crash yesterday and trying to recover from it. So bear with me.
Well, the main thing is, in looking at you on our screen here, your hair looks fantastic. The body may be a little bit sore, but your hair looks perfect, man.
Yeah, you can't see the body cast from my hips down, but no, I'm just kidding. No, my hair looks great because it just crashed and landed on my head. That always does a great hairstyling job.
Truth. Very much truthful. What do you got for us tonight?
Well, I got a combination of both things that I promised. First of all, I mentioned to you guys, and I'm going to start out with the story, and then we'll go to the update recent news one. I said I was going to try and find the original version of the Daniel Boone encounter, and even with both teams working on it, they have not found it yet. And we've got short versions of it, but I'm not going to give that to you. This one, on the other hand, is Davy Crockett's encounter. 5/15/1836, Nacogdoches, Texas. Davy Crockett and the Bigfoot's Prophecy. In a letter addressed to Abner Bergen, Davy Crockett recounted the following tale. William and I were pushing through some thicket, clearing the way. And remember, this is Nacogdoches in Texas in 1836. There was nothing there but woods. When I sat down to mop my brow, must have been hot, I sat for a spell watching as William made his good and fine progress. I removed my boots and sat with my rations, thinking the afternoon is a fine time for lunch. As the birds whistled and chirped and I ate my small and meager ration, I tapped my axe upon the opposite side of the felled tree I rested upon. Whether it was the axe's disturbance or possibly the heat of the high sun which caused an apparition to slowly form in front of my eyes, I know not. As a Christian man, I swear to you, Abe, that what spirit came upon me was the shape and shade of a large ape man, the likes we might expect among the more bellicose and hostile Indian tribes of the territories. The shade formed into the most deformed and ugly countenance, covered in wild hair, with small and needling eyes, large broken rows of teeth, and the height of 3 foundlings. I don't know how tall that is. I spit upon the ground the bread I was eating. The monster then addressed a warning to me. Abner, it told me to return from Texas, to flee this fort, and to abandon this lost cause. When I began to question this, the creature spread upon the wind like the morning steam swirls off a frog pond. I swear to you, Abner, that whatever meat or sausage disagreed with me that afternoon, I forswore all beef and hog for a day or so afterwards. We all know what happened at the Alamo shortly after that. Most Crockett scholars ignore this passage as a silly story told to entertain his friend in a personal letter, though some Bigfoot scholars remain convinced the creature reached out and tried to save the frontiersman from the horrible fate that was about to befall him. And there you go. That's Davy Crockett's account. They should wonder what the heck was going on there, because most of these frontiersmen, they don't go around hallucinating.
No.
They're as hardcore, hands-on, real world as you can get, because they live in it all the time.
You know what I was...
And even he thought there was something weird going on there. Am I hallucinating? Did I eat some bad meat or something?
You know what I got to think about this, Duke, is every time you tell one of these very old stories about Sasquatch, the creature seems to be almost malevolent in a way, much more than what we see today.
The main reason for that is the same reason for the weekly world news and things like that. It's clickbait. The stories that are more terrifying, the more monster stories, are the more enthralling ones that, of course, get spread all over the place. And because of wide distribution, they end up making it through the long corridor of time down to where we are nowadays, so we can actually find these reports. There's other peculiar reports that aren't hostile ones. I'm hitting the really big historical ones, as we're going into this, and some of the more peculiar ones, of course, will come later. But when you've got, well-known figures in American history like Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett, President Roosevelt, you've got a bunch of people that have all talked about this thing in various places and had encounters and whatnot. Teddy Roosevelt may have had an encounter too. So there you go. It's worth mentioning that everybody's got this impression that Bigfoot didn't appear until the 1950s. Jerry Crew and the whole logging operation being interrupted by Bigfoot, and the newsman made up the story. Bigfoot made up the name Bigfoot for the story, and it spread from there. Well, they weren't calling it Bigfoot before then, but there were still reports. We got reports going back as far as when people showed up on the continent. There's been reports. They just used to call it something different. They called it a wild man, or and in the case of Daniel Boone, he said he had a fight with a Yahoo. That's what they called him in his local area. So if you go look for Bigfoot, you're not going to find it because, Daniel Boone reported it as a Yahoo encounter.
Do you find that a lot of these stories that are of the older dates are still quite relevant to the research today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, for a long time here, we've been going through this flesh and blood versus paranormal thing in the community. Well, there's an example from Davy Crockett. Pretty level-headed guy. He was in Washington, D.C. shortly before this happened and decided that he didn't want to be in the government anymore. And if you recall the famous saying, he told everybody, "You gentlemen can all go to hell. I'm going to Texas." So, he was not only an accomplished frontiersman, he was actually a politician, all-around smart guy, presumed to be level-headed and sober. And, here he is in the woods in Nacogdoches having a Bigfoot apparition appear in front of him and tell him, "Go back, you're going to get killed." What? Doesn't sound like something that should be happening.
No kidding. Well, let us move on. Have there been any reports lately coming in that have really caught your interest?
There's a bunch of stuff happening. I know somebody that's got a baby Sasquatch on video. That's cute. You can see his little eyes blink. That's coming up there from that country that you're in, Dave, in Canada. And got another researcher down here that I was talking to earlier today, and they got audio recording of a baby Bigfoot. And you could have them on their show and have them play it if you're interested. So they haven't been on your show before. But the big news right now that nobody knows about yet, because I haven't bothered to tell anybody, it has to do with the Patterson-Gimlin film. Oh boy, every few years we have to go back and revisit the Patterson-Gimlin film again. And in this case, it's because apparently when the Patterson-Gimlin film was first shown in theaters, Roger Patterson had, of course, access to the whole film. He filmed it. Everything didn't go into the final cut. Pieces of it were left out for length, whatever. This is a scenery shot I don't need, blah, blah, blah. And there's always been a rumor circulating around that there was some actually good stuff that didn't get included in that video and released to the public. And as it turns out, apparently that is the case. There is more video, which has just come into the hands of somebody, and they are looking to try and get it out on the market. In fact, they want to sell it to somebody. If they want to buy it and actually put out a movie on it, it is available for purchase. But it shows another additional Sasquatch that was in the original video. And there's, I can't really go into a lot of detail. I'm not allowed to. But it's the Patterson-Gimlin film. It's a missing piece from the Patterson-Gimlin film. It shows another Sasquatch.
Really? How is that found? How has that been forgotten for 50 plus years?
Oh, dude, there's been so much fighting about how many. First of all, Roger, at the time that he was touring this around, he was making copies because they were showing them at movie theaters.
Right.
So you'd have more than one copy with you. One of them burned up or fell in a mud puddle or something. What are you going to do at the next showing, right? So he had multiple copies of this that he was dragging around with him. And one of them, apparently, the story here is that the original version that was uncut fell into the hands of this person. Now, from what I've been able to figure out, there may have been two original versions that were uncut. The Russians have their hands on one. And the other one, I'm not sure where it came from, if it was yet another full-length copy of the original that he had made or where exactly. And those details aren't being leaked yet. But whoever has this, they've apparently got the full length of it. including all the cut video, and it's got another Sasquatch on it. Apparently what Roger was planning is after the initial hullabaloo died down and everybody was kind of bored at looking at the Patty video, he was going to turn out another video that had this additional piece of video in it, and then go shop that around, bring it to all the movie theaters and whatnot, keep everybody's interest going, presumably to help him fund getting out in the field and doing more research. On his deathbed, he told Bob Gimlin that's what he wanted to do. He was looking forward to getting more funding and getting out in the field with Bob again, which, of course, never happened. But so that's the whole backstory on this. So if there's anybody out there that's filthy rich and wants to purchase this piece of video and make a movie out of it, it's available for $16 million.
Would you buy it if you had the money?
If I had as much money as Elon Musk, I'd snap it up. I happen to know that, there is a full-length version of this, and that it is in the hands of the Russians. Whether there is another full-length version of it, which at this point seems very likely, I don't know who's got it exactly. So, I'd have to go take a look at it, and I would have to vet it some more. But what I've been able to vet independently from other people that know way more about this subject than I do, there was additional video. It was not included. And so there's an absolute possibility this could be for real. And I have other people that have already been looking into it. And so far they're saying everything checks out. The guy's credentials are impeccable. Everything he's saying I've been able to verify. So, it looks good, actually. Promising so far. I haven't seen it myself.
If you had that smoking gun video, like the Patterson-Gimlin film, would you release it? Knowing what they have gone through the last 50 years?
Oh, sure. I'm already getting hell for everything. Why not actually make some money off it? Would I release it? Of course. I release everything that I get. And if I'm allowed to release it by the witness, it comes out.
This is
and
where...
The other thing is that this is... There's another controversy about this film that MK Davis and a few other people have talked about, because there's long been this rumor that there was additional video around. And they're all saying that the additional video shows that there was a massacre at Bluff Creek and a bunch of Sasquatch were shot, and that's on the video. And from what I'm getting from this side, that's not on the video. It was never filmed. There's nothing like that. It's just more additional video. And there's an additional Sasquatch in it, a smaller one.
Yeah, I've always heard the rumors that there was a tiny Sasquatch in that one. I've looked at the original film. I can't see it. I mean, it looks like Donkey Kong from the original Atari series in 1984. All right, which is one of them big square blocks. I just don't see it, Duke. I don't see it. I mean, hey, if it's there, it's there. When Patterson and Gimlin had that video created, or they filmed it, pardon me, they didn't have it created, but when they filmed it, did they see any more Sasquatch besides the first one?
I'm not sure if they claim that they saw more or not. I mean, the only remaining one is Bob. You'd have to ask him that question. They knew that there was more than just that one around there. That's why Roger yelled to Bob to pull his rifle and cover him when he ran to grab the camera and tried to run toward it and film it. Bob rode the horse across the river and covered him. And while Roger was running toward it trying to film it, that's when Patty turns and looks back over her shoulder. She's looking at Bob Gimlin with his rifle that just rode the horse across the river. She isn't paying any attention to Roger. So, yeah, there were other Sasquatch there. And Blaine Tyler, who's been on your show before, has done some pretty extensive breakdowns on all the original released video that was put out on the Patterson-Gimlin film, including the intro part where they're walking down the road and there's tracks and all that kind of stuff. And he's found several more Sasquatch in it. Absolutely, they're there. What's going on here is this is not in any video that you have ever seen. Has not been released to the public, ever. It's a piece of video they shot, which was never released. So this isn't something where, I think it's supposed to be in here or something. No, you've never seen it. It hasn't been released to the public ever.
My goodness. This could really put the entire Sasquatch world and tip it over a little bit.
Well, if it's authentic and it is part of the original footage, it tends to buttress that there was really an encounter there and they really were filming Sasquatch, because here's another one that they got on the same video. And if you think about Roger, the way he did things, it kind of makes sense that he would do that like that. Because, I got lucky. This is like the most luckiest thing that could ever happen. I managed to actually get a Sasquatch on camera. Well, if you got two on camera and they weren't right in the same frame at the same time, I can see how he'd be tempted to go, well, I could do a part 2. And put this other video out in a few years and then tour that all over the country for a few years.
Put it out as an NFT. He'll get his money. Some of the stuff they're selling on NFTs these days, he'll get his money. He will get 7 figures for that. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Quickly here, we got about 35 seconds left with you. Where can everybody find your information? World Bigfoot Radio, Duke?
You can get Old World Bigfoot Radio at YouTube, Bright Eon, BitChute, Rumble, and Odyssey, and you can find my support groups on MeWe. It is World Bigfoot Central, and on Facebook, it is Montana Bigfoot Project. There you go.
Wonderful. It is always a good time with you on here. We'll talk to you next week as we take a few days break with Bigfoot Radio. You make sure that you go get healthy here, buddy. We don't want to...
Yeah, I'm going to try not to do any more crashing until at least I heal up from this one.
All right. Be safe out there. And coming up next, we have the Dave 101. We have Shirky Poo's news and the thought of the Dave. A jam-packed final half hour of Spaced Out Radio is next. Stay tuned. Thanks, buddy. I'll let you go here because I know you got to go get healthy, man.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I just need to go fall down. I'll listen to the rest of the show, and if I can sit up for a little bit, I'll join you guys in the chat room.
Well, don't push yourself too far. Go get some rest, man.
Yeah, no matter what position I'm in, it's going to hurt. So sitting in front of a chair, in front of a computer for a half an hour, I could probably pull that off, okay? That's why I'm on here right now.
No problem, buddy. You take care.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Dave.
Take care. Duke Sullivan, World Bigfoot Radio, everyone. Love him. Love him. Duke is one of those guys where he's just as honest as the daylight. He really is. Like him. Or really like him. Just my kind of guy. All right, I think I know what I'm going to talk about here. I'm going to talk about Eric with a K and how tall he is for the Dave 101. Eric's like 7'6". He's got size 23 feet. I'm teasing. Hi, 416. How you doing? Thank you, Dirt Road. Hug downloaded and received. Can do, Eric with a K. It'll be about just over an hour from now. Because I have to edit the show after. Well, watching us on Facebook, Little Jimmy Goodall. Yeah, Little Jimmy Goodall is going to be in Las Vegas with us. I look forward to seeing Jim again, along with the guys from UFO Garage, Ben and Joe. Geraldine Orozco is going to be there. Who else do we got coming? Let me see here. I got to make a list. Ola Phillips is going to be there, and who else? I got to make a list instead of going off the top of my head. Maybe Darcy Weir? And we're going to see if Eric with a K is going to join us. I'll call you after the show. You're up this late, and you asked me to call you. I'll call you. We may have a certain news anchor from Las Vegas at our party. Let's see. Who else? Bigfoot Michigan Rob is going to be there. Nate Rudd from Wibbs is going to be there, along with Hallmark Corey. Varla Ventura, likely going to be there. Hey, Super Duke, you're back. If you're planning on going to Vegas and you are 100%, let us know at info@spacedoutradio.com. All right, we want to make sure we see you. We do. We want to make sure it's there. And that way we get you a swag bag. First 50 people qualify for a swag bag. It's going to be fun. Fun. Who plays the trumpet solo at the end of the show? Lately it has been Luscious Jules. But Thurston Howell III stepped up last night. And if you haven't already, we would appreciate if you go and hit subscribe on our brand new storytelling channel called Canada's Great Unknown. See, we have spooky stories up here. It's not all about hockey, beavers, moose, igloos, dog sled teams, frozen trout, pancakes, maple syrup, and Tim Hortons donuts. No. We got some spooky stories up here, and we're going to tell them to you at Canada's Great Unknown. So make sure you head on over there and hit that subscribe button as well. Thank you very much. Here we go, everyone. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is time once again for Dave 101.
It's time for Dave 101.
All right, the UFO world was put upside down this week as people dug in and took sides after a documentary was created about Luis Elizondo. For people who do not know who Luis Elizondo is, this is the man who came out in 2017 saying that he ran the ATIP program at the Pentagon searching for UFOs. He has since become a very polarized figure within the community, first starting out with the Two of the Stars Academy, and then leaving them last year in order to go it alone and be that individual who is going to help ruffle some feathers and ruffle the skins of the politicians who really had no idea that UFOs were actually flying around the United States' friendly skies. But there is also some deep questions that Luis Elizondo hasn't answered. Many will say it's due to his non-disclosure agreements that he has. And for all intents and purposes, they're right. He can't. Could you imagine if Lou Elizondo actually told us what we want to hear? The entire world would probably be flipping upside down right now. Because personally, I don't think we're ready for it, especially here in North America, where we're more interested in Instagram and TikTok videos than we are about learning the truth about extraterrestrials. But this documentary that was made, which has since been taken down due to copyright infringement, and will probably be re-edited and reloaded up very, very soon, asks some pertinent questions. Even though I don't support or condone the video, I did not support and condone the fact or give permission for our own interview snippets of spaced out radio interviews with Luis Elizondo. I never gave permission. I thought there were some legitimate questions that needed to be asked. We do need to know what Lou knows. We do need to understand. We do need the ability to ask tough questions. Now, most interviews, and where I will agree with the man who created this documentary, is the majority of interviews Lou Elizondo has done, whether it's on Fox News, CNN, New York Times, or even some piddly podcasts like ours. He hasn't been asked a lot of tough questions. I don't know about you guys. I don't care about the technology. I don't care about the propulsion systems, because those do not disclose. What does disclose is, who are they? Where are they coming from? And how are they going to affect everyday life of humanity if we know the truth? Look, there are a lot of people, and rightfully so out there, who question Lou Elizondo and his honesty and integrity. I do. We all should. Even those who treat him like a demigod should be thinking, why do I trust this man so much? Because spooks are spooks. Spies are spies. All right? And that's what Lou is. He's a counterintelligence officer. And we are allowed to ask questions. We are allowed to ask Lou tough questions. Whether he chooses to answer them or not are up to him. Now, for the record, I will say this. I do believe Mr. Elizondo worked at ATIP. I do believe that he has had a big hand in helping present the UFO story to the politicians in Washington, D.C. I do know that he has talked to other government people around the world regarding this subject to enlighten them on what is going on, not only in the United States, but their own country. I do know that he wants the best for this subject. But what is the best? What is it that we need? Most people out there need to understand there is a large difference between disclosure and confirmation. Huge difference. Confirmation is letting us know that this happens, that this is frequent, that they don't know where it's coming from, but they got their eyes on it, and by golly, we need some taxpayer money in order to study this phenomena. Disclosure is scary for governments. It is. They don't want to give up what they already know. Whether they have extraterrestrials, whether they already have communication, whether they know where the missing people are going, whether they know where those craft are coming from, even though groups like SETI say, oh, we've never picked up a thing. No. Disclosure would tell us what really happened at Roswell, at Shag Harbor, the Phoenix Lights, Kecksburg, every UFO crash in between around North America and maybe the world. That's the disclosure we want. Are we ever going to get it? I highly doubt it. There's too much for the American government and the military to lose. Why would they give it up when they don't have to? Look, we have to be naive to think that the United States military, the Pentagon, and all the alphabet agencies are all of a sudden going to become very Americanized and fill in their citizens on what is really going on. No, confirmation is give the people a little bit and they'll be satisfied. Much like if you're starving for food and somebody gives you a bottle cap of water and a slice of bread, it's going to feel like the best meal you've ever had. And that's the way we have been treating every morsel and every crumb that we have got from people like Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, Mr. George Knapp, people I highly respect. They can only go so far. All right? George Knapp is bound by his journalistic rules. He can't give everything up. Chris Mellon has an NDA. He can't give everything up. Lou Elizondo has an NDA. He can't give anything up. We want the juice. We want the excitement. We want to know that maybe somebody like Elizondo or someone in that UFO program, because there are others, have stood face-to-face with aliens, much like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. We want to know what that's like. We want to know why scientist Gary Nolan at Stanford University is studying the effects of ET contact on the brain. We want to know about that. We need to know. We want to know why people are getting abducted. People are having ET contact. We deserve to know. But do they want us to know? And no, I'm not talking about the aliens here. I'm talking about the government. So when it comes to this documentary, as we start to round it back here for a second, the documentary isn't pleasing. I think it's very opinionated. I think that even though the creator, being this first documentary, did a relatively good job on the research, all right, between the ad hominem attacks and the personal opinion, I think it watered it down of what good it could have been. If he would have called me, I probably would have answered. And many others are like that as well. This isn't a shot at him or anybody supporting him. It's not a shot at those who disagree, like I do. This is just my feelings on a very controversial topic. But don't think for a second, ufology, as much as I am a fan and supporter of Luis Elizondo's, that means that he gets off the hook. For the record, because there are people, and including in that documentary, who said that Luis Elizondo has asked those cushy podcasts for questions up front, for softball questions, lead-in questions to only things he can speak about. With journalistic integrity, I can say that in the 2 times I've interviewed him, he has specifically asked, do not provide him with any questions. He has also specifically stated that he wants tough questions, and he'll answer them the best that he can. That's all you can ever ask from somebody who is sitting in the hot seat getting questions coming to them. But for some reason, in today's day and age, it's not a tough question unless we are calling someone out, pointing our fingers, raising our voices, and saying, "You're lying! Tell us the truth!" It's not what it's about at all. You can ask a very tough, pointed question very calmly and more effectively. It's all in how you word it and how your body language is. This is one of the problems with so few real journalists being in the podcast field in this subject. But that doesn't mean that Lou gets a free pass. No one in this field should get a free pass. I have friends on MUFON, on the board of directors. They don't get a free pass. Why should Lou? Has Lou done a lot for this? Absolutely. All right? But that doesn't mean that even though we can respect him and the job he did as a veteran and as someone who brought this topic to the mainstream and became the figurehead of UFOs, it doesn't mean that he gets away with not asking tough questions. Now, in my opinion, this documentary may not have been the way. There could have been better ways to do it. And I hope that next time someone actually does try something like this, that it's more down the road with interviews of people and interviews with people who have knowledge, maybe the man himself. But until then, we're going to continue this ugly debate between ufology, and both sides are going to be angry, both sides are going to stomp their feet, both sides are going to throw their arms in the air and call people names and make up stories to suit their agenda. But in the end, it doesn't matter. What matters is we don't know who Luis Elizondo is. We don't know his background. And there are certain things we don't need to know. We don't need to know his wife's name. We don't need to know his dog's name. We don't need to know what he drives or what kind of toothpaste he uses in the morning. We don't need to dox him. After all, no matter what, he is a human being and deserves to be treated like that. But you're still allowed to ask him the tough questions, and he still needs to provide a lot of answers for a very, very hungry UFO community. That is your Dave 101. Do me a favor if you're on YouTube or you're checking this out, leave a comment below. Let us know what you think, because I'm very curious to read your thoughts. Let's get to the news. All right, Shirky Poo, what do you got for us tonight? How about this? As hard as it might be to believe North Korea has internet access, of course, it's extremely restricted in line with the country's repressive government policies, but it's still there. North Korea's bizarre little pool of website numbers, only at a few dozen, including the country Air Koryo airline and Kim Jong-un's official Naenara site, and earlier this year, they all crashed. The dictatorship's security personnel soon realized that the connection outages, spread over a couple weeks, were due to hacking. But the culprit behind the attack wasn't North Korea's southern neighbor, nor the CIA or any other government agency. It was just one irritated man. The hacker who crashed North Korea's internet is an American security researcher. It's probably not safe to publish his name, but he operates online under the pseudonym P4X. P4X didn't pull off his relatively extensive cyber attack for nothing, though. He merely served North Korea's government its just desserts. About a year ago, P4X himself had come under a North Korean hacking attack. He was one of the several Western victims the Korean hackers targeted. According to P4X, the aim of the attack was most likely to steal software tools that could be used in cyber attacks, alongside information about security vulnerabilities. Luckily, P4X says he bested the hackers, and they didn't get anything of worth out of him. But becoming a personal target to hackers serving a totalitarian regime still left him a bit rattled. He reported the attack to the U.S. government, which seems like the right thing to do, and then nothing. So he decided to become computer vigilante and attack back. So He said the hacker launched a one-man denial of service on DOS attack against North Korea. To make his job easier, P4X wrote an automated script that periodically scans North Korean systems to see which of them are online. If the script finds a working system, it'll start exploiting security holes to bring it down. P4X doesn't want to say exactly which vulnerabilities he's exploiting to not give out information to potential cyber criminals. For me, this is kind of like the size of a small to medium penetration test, he says, referring to a controlled cyber attack that security experts use to check a client's network for vulnerabilities. It's pretty interesting to see how it was actually put into effect and how it worked. Okay. Now, this young lady, this 25-year-old, yeah, she's a bad girl. Bad girl. Yeah, she's from Tennessee, charged with allegedly chopping her dad with an axe and then punching her grandpa in the face before they disarmed her and subdued her. Nevada Fortson faces charges of aggravated assault, aggravated battery, violating an order of protection, and resisting arrest after breaking into the home of her dad and grandfather on order of protection from her mother. The county sheriff's office said she hitched a ride to Grandpa's house where he lived with her parents and broke in through a guest room window with an axe around 2:20 in the morning. Her mother, Robin, awoke to the sound of breaking glass. She went into the guest bedroom and saw her daughter, then ran into her own bedroom and locked the door. The suspect's 64-year-old father, Doug, encountered her in the hallway with an axe and told police that she hit him with it 3 times before he could wrestle it out of her grip. Then Grandpa Glenn came in to help subdue her, but she gave him a black eye. Yeah. Oh, this girl is trouble. Just trouble. Who does that to Grandpa? Anyways, here we are. The young lady gets called and arrested by police. She says, "I'm not going to prison." Oh, yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. She tried to get away with a couple of her male friends, Daniel Fleenor and Christopher Price, but they got arrested as well. And, in fact, when they were arrested, they said, they're not going to jail. Well, apparently they were. They were handcuffed. And next thing you know, they're in the slammer. An Ohio couple and their daughter are suing a doctor in the healthcare system, claiming that the doctor wrongly inseminated the wife with a stranger's sperm, which the family said it did not discover until years later. The couple, Mike and Jeanine Harvey, underwent an insemination procedure in 1991 to fertilize the wife's eggs with her husband's sperm. Well, Jeanine became pregnant, gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Jessica. Leading up to Christmas 2020, though, Jessica and her husband asked her parents for Ancestry.com kits so they could see where they were ancestors coming from. But the DNA results revealed a shocking discovery. The father who had raised her was not the biological dad. Further tests led Jessica to her biological dad, who confirmed that he and his wife were patients of the same fertility doctor as Jessica's parents in 91. At the time, Dr. Nicholas Spiritos was the serving chief of Division Reproductive Endocrinology and Infertility at the Summa Akron Hospital. Yeah, well, he made a boo-boo. This guy doesn't own his daughter. Well, he does, but you know what I'm saying. And now, this is going to be a big lawsuit. Yeah, nobody wants this one. And an 11-year-old Florida boy decided to try magnet fishing. So he tries it for the first time with his grandpa in a canal. Pulled up 2 guns. 2 guns. Yeah, the little boy has autism. Was all excited going magnet fishing with grandpa until the police had to be called. Yep, the little boy was claimed to be a hero because they don't know where the guns came from or what they've been used for. He estimated the guns to be worth around $10,000. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself, Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us. Because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.